Welcome to the Kent Lapp Podcast.
I saw his hairdo I saw your profile picture of the hairdo, and then I was like, oh, maybe that's him.
Oh, okay, yeah. Now, the last time I had hair was a few weeks ago, and then I had a pretty good beard going in March and April, and I think it might have drug into May, and then, at that point, everyone was wearing masks, and I was just tired of it, and I just trimmed it off and trimmed all the hair off the top of my head, too. Makes it nice and easy.
Yeah, it's easy. Yeah, I mean, like when I would buzz my hair, it's so easy to just dry yourself after your shower. Like
exactly.
When you have longer hair, it's like,
you have a really nice beard. You have a good full beard too.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I grew up myself. Yeah.
Have you had that nice and long? Or
my wife's never seen me without a beard.
Really?
So we've been married for almost 5 years. I've known her for almost 7 years. So yeah, I've had a beard since I was 19. Yeah.
Oh wow. I just okay. Yeah. No, it looks great, man. Yeah, it looks great. It's a good full beard. So you've been married for almost 5 years, you say?
Yeah, it'll be 5 years in March. Yeah.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, and I saw you pull up on a Model X. How do you like it?
Oh, I love that car, man.
How long have you had that?
Had that for about a year. We got the Model 3 when it first came out.
Oh, did you? Okay.
But then they released the white seats later that year, so we sold that one and got the new one with the white seats, and my wife has that one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we love.
What do you mean
Teslas.
the white seats?
So when the Model 3 first came out, it only had black leather seats.
Oh, okay.
And it was burning hot here in Austin.
Oh, really?
I wanted white seats, but they didn't release it yet. So I was like, I'd rather just like get the car.
Yeah.
And we'll figure out what, because I didn't know if it was gonna be a year or 2 years later whenever they released white seats.
Okay.
But then they did like 6 months later. I was like, we could have waited a little bit.
Yeah.
So we sold that one. Then we bought the second one. We bought the second one with the same money.
Yeah.
The price, if anything, went up because it was demand. It was hard to get a Model 3 if you weren't already in line. So we made a little bit of money on it, which is good.
That's crazy.
But then we got the white seats, and so now it's not burning anymore. So she has. The thing is, we bought the Model X because we were like, hey, we want to start having kids, and like. I was like, hey, you can have the kids in the SUV, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And she desires to be a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
And so she's an accountant. She doesn't really like it.
Okay.
And I was like, all right, well, then you can get the Model X. I get the 3. And she's like, no, I want the 3.
Oh, really?
So I'm like, all right, yeah. Because the 3 is more fun to drive. It's more nimble. It just feels better on the road.
Okay.
The X, not that it's better from a sporty aspect. The Model X is definitely a heavier vehicle. It definitely doesn't, like, you can feel you're moving a big object when you're maneuvering.
Okay.
It's powerful, but you kind of don't want to be that bold on the road. Meaning it'll accelerate super fast, but it's kind of dangerous too to do that, right?
Sure.
Especially with a big SUV. So she definitely feels a lot more comfortable in Model X, but we'll switch back once we have kids. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I have not driven a Model 3. I have a Model S, but it's a 2013, so it's old. But what strikes me about the 2013 is it's still ahead of other cars that are 2019 and 20.
It's crazy, yeah.
And that's like 5-6 years ago, 7 years ago now. You know.
Yeah. But the Model S, it definitely feels more premium than the 3. So like I've
heard that.
I've driven an older Model S and the newer ones, and it feels like a beast. Like it's also a heavy vehicle. It's more powerful than the Model 3. The reason why we went with the 3 is because like we felt like we get about 85% of what Model S is, but it's like half the price. All right, Model S is like it's a very premium vehicle. You get all the bells and whistles, and the X it feels very similar to the S, but the S is like a more nimble version of the X.
Yes,
right. That's how they feel. So we're like, this is kind of the like X utility. It does what we need it to do. 3, it's the price point we want, and I was like, once we exit, we'll get an S.
Oh, really?
Until we exit,
that's the carrot out
that's
front.
the mentality for now. We're like, be a little conservative. And the thing is, our mentality was. Like with my wife's old Toyota, her old Ford Focus, it was she bought it for like $16K, but then we put like $10K of work into it. It was like 4 years old. Yeah. It turns out we got the 2014 model, which had a ton of recall issues and stuff. So we just didn't luck out. I was like, we could have just bought like a Model 3 with this money.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
So that was the rationale. Yeah.
Well, we have 5 kids, and we fit in my Model S.
Oh, yeah.
It has the 2 rear-facing trunk seats.
That's awesome. Wow.
And so we put two of the smaller kids in the back, and the rest of us fit in there just fine. It's a family vehicle.
And it has a nice frunk too, right? So you can like put more stuff in there.
It has a great frunk, yeah. But Model X has been something. We have a minivan also, and I mean, ideally we'd get rid of the minivan and get a Model X.
Yeah.
Because I mean they seat 7 as well.
How are you feeling about the Cybertruck? So I'm signed up for it.
Are you really?
It comes out next summer.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think it needs to grow on you.
Yeah.
You know, I think here's what I think. I think they're going to hit the market and people are going to do some minor upgrades on them.
Yeah.
Different tires or wheels, that type of thing, and then it's going to look so badass.
Yeah.
Because I have seen a couple of mock-ups on Instagram and the internets where it's like someone did a mock-up where they jacked it up a little bit, bigger tires, and made it out to be like a police vehicle, and that thing looks sick, man.
Yeah.
So sick.
I love the matte black. It looks really good on it. We also want, I don't know if they're going to release a camper mode extension or something that we can get on it, but we want that as well. So we are signed up for getting a Cybertruck next summer, but we don't want 3 cars. We have 2 drivers. But we're like, all right, if Tesla Rideshare comes out, we'll make the 3 be our, make revenue for the family.
Exactly.
And she drives the X and I drive the Cybertruck.
Does the 3 have everything that it would need to go out and drive people around?
Correct. Yeah, it does. Yeah,
by itself.
Correct. Yeah. So they also, because we signed up for full self-driving from the very beginning, they also give you the GPU upgrade for free. So we're now on the hardware, I think 2.5 or 3.0, whatever is the latest one. They just upgraded it about a month ago. So now it has all the features that the current Model X has. But for me, I'm like a little bitter in regards to the Cybertruck versus the X, because the Cybertruck has everything the X has and better specs, and it's like $35K cheaper.
Really?
It's nuts. Yeah,
but it doesn't seat 7 though, does it?
It doesn't. No, it doesn't seat 7.
Okay.
So that's the one
5?
thing. It seats 5. I mean, honestly, you probably fit 4 in the back, to be real. It's a pretty wide vehicle.
Yep.
But if we have a camper mode sort of thing, I don't know what they're going to do with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. It doesn't have 7 seats. But as far as like 500-mile battery, 0 to 60, was it like 2.9? Like,
that's crazy.
It's nuts.
Crazy. Can you imagine 30 years ago if you'd have told someone, here's what a pickup truck might look like in 2021, and here's the specs on it, here's how fast? Be like, you're crazy, man. And it's going to run on a battery.
Yeah.
And it's going to go 500 miles. But no way.
They're targeting a different type of person though. Like, I'm not a Ford F-150 person. I would never like generally buy a truck because it looks weird like that. That's like, I'm a techie, and I think they targeted like the techies who are like okay with buying more of a utility sort of vehicle. I think Cybertruck's kind of good mix, because they're like, I remember Elon Musk talking about how he's like, we're not trying to target Ford F-150 people. They're going to stick to Ford F-150s year after year after year. He's targeting a different demographic.
They're creating a new category.
Exactly, yeah.
Did you ever read that book, The 21-Year Immutable Laws of Marketing?
I haven't.
It was like in the early 90s. Tim Ferriss has recommended it a few times. And finally, several years ago, I got it. It's one of the most referenced books of all time for me, just in business.
Yeah.
And that's what it's talking about. If you can't be first or second in a category, create a new category, then own it.
Yeah.
That's what Musk did with the Cybertruck.
Yeah,
I totally agree with that. And I wanted to ask this at some point, so I may as well just ask you right now. But you have it mentioned somewhere I saw that your dream mentor is Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I would say from a business standpoint, not necessarily a like personal life standpoint, right? I have a different perspective on life than he does.
Yep.
I think that he has a level of courage and boldness, and also a level of challenging the status quo that most people don't have. For me, growing up most of my life, I've always been the type of kid that always asked why. I was probably the most annoying kid to my parents, because they would tell me to do something, I'd be like, why? And it's like, because I'm your parent, now go do it, right? And so, like, the thing is, and I expect mine and Sarah's kids to also be very similar, constantly questioning. And I know I need to grow in my patience to be like, I don't want to give them the answer, the reason. I know in my flesh, I'm gonna be like, because I said so, I'm your dad, go do it. But I need to be giving them answers, because I, as a kid, wanted answers too. Like, something as simple as in high school, I had a 2.6 GPA in high school. I didn't try, right? And if just one person gave me a good reason as to why I should do my homework and get college credit for my AP courses and stuff like that, like for your AP classes, you get 10 extra points on your average. But I was like, oh, cool, I get to be 10 points lazier. So I just need a 59.5, and then I passed this class. And if anyone ever taught, if someone,
you were too smart for your own good.
Yeah. I was like, if one person just gave me a good reason, my parents, they didn't know about, they're immigrants, they didn't know about like AP credit and all that type of stuff. If one person just gave me a good reason why, I probably would have done all of that, and I probably could have utilized those things for a better outcome. But I think Elon Musk had a good, healthy perspective on questioning things, and then he goes and seeks out the answer. For me as a kid, I just would question things and wanted things to be handed to me, as far as like, you didn't give me an answer, okay, that means there's no good answer, as opposed to, you didn't give me an answer, maybe there's a reation why people do this, let me go find out.
Okay.
And I think that I've learned that over the years, that like people test these things, and even just looking at the way that he had built like all of his vehicles, he definitely tested the status quo in regards to like, hey, yeah, like vehicles have been built this way for the past 130 years, whatever. That doesn't mean we necessarily need to do the same thing with the Model S and the X and the 3 or whatever. If you look at the chassis, it's so different. It's not even a car. It's like, it's a different type of vehicle, and it's because they tested all the assumptions. And even for me, the way that I built Immersed, same thing, man. Like back in 2017, when I checked out the landscape to see what other products are out there that are similar, I just felt like all of them were targeting the technology, or rather building their product based on what's available technologically, as opposed to building for the user. And I think it was like Steve Jobs who talks about, let's focus on the user and then work our way back to what technology needs to be invented to service that, as opposed to, hey, what's possible today, quote unquote, and let's just build that and try to like pigeonhole the user and train them to learn a new type of way of using this garbage technology.
Yes, I love that, and Musk does that really well. I mean, I just think, even setting aside the renewable energy piece, that's just how cars were meant to be driven, in my opinion. I mean, when you drive an electric vehicle that's built well, like a Tesla, the speed, the responsiveness, the torque, the ease that it moves around, the fluidity of movement, the spontaneous just kind of starts, and the regenerative braking. You pull your foot off the pedal. It's like, this is how cars were meant to be driven. And the other, a few weeks ago, I was at the office. I looked out the window and there was a Tesla that come up to the stop sign, took a right, and went down the road. You could tell by the way that car accelerated that it was electric. I mean, I knew that it was, because I could tell it was Tesla. That aside, though, if you had this gas car do the same thing, it's just different. There was a responsiveness there that I think you really just get with an electric vehicle. It's like, this is how cars were meant to be driven.
Exactly.
It's something that's supposed to feel. What do you think? Do you think what Elon's doing is sustainable? I mean, he's what he said, 4 big businesses, or 3 or 4. I mean, it's like, this is kind of unprecedented what he's doing, isn't it?
So the thing is, he spends 50-50 between SpaceX and Tesla. Those are his 2 babies. When it comes to things like the Boring Company and OpenAI and these different companies that he kind of has a little bit of his hand in, he says he spends about, I think, 2 hours a week on the Boring Company. He works about 100 hours a week, 2% on the Boring Company, like 40% Tesla, 40% SpaceX, and then he has like these other little things that he kind of does on the side,
like Neuralink and stuff.
Yeah, Neuralink's another one. And so he is mainly like, he realizes Tesla and SpaceX, these are the biggest like revenue generating companies. So he needs more of his time there. But when it comes to Boring and Neuralink, as soon as one of those things become, like probably Neuralink in 10 years from now, like he'll likely find someone who can replace him at Tesla or SpaceX. He'll more likely let go of Tesla than he will SpaceX. He talked about how at Tesla, I mean, he's been looking for a replacement. Like I think about 2 or 3 years ago, he mentioned he was looking for a replacement. He just hasn't been able to find someone who could that he could trust will run the company the way that it should be run. Because again, it's too easy to become a money-hungry entrepreneur that doesn't care about the mission. It cares more about the money up front. And so in order to keep him on board, his board gave him this crazy target, which was, hey, 10x the company in the next 5 years. I think he did it in 2 or 3 years, which happened this year. 10x the company, which is nuts. I remember when their shares were, before the 5-for-1 stock split, their stock was 170. And I was actually in. I sold at 265, and then they just started
I had some
going
at 260. Yeah,
and then they went to the 2000s, and I wasn't in. I was like, oh crap, it's too high. It's going to come back down. Never came back down. 5-for-1 stock split, and then now again, I think this morning, as of this morning, it's like 620 or 630 right now after the stock split. So like that means over 3K before the stock split, which is mind blowing, right? So that being said, like he realizes he has to focus his time and energy towards the larger companies. When Neuralink, honestly, probably 10 years from now, it'll be a massive thing, because we start moving into the Matrix sort of stuff, and that's kind of a whole like weird kind of world. But if that is making revenue and it's like an actual commercialized product, I mean, it might make sense for him to start increasing his percentage of time on that company, to make sure that the vision and the mission is accomplished, as opposed to just the money.
To apply what only he can apply, right? Because I mean, he applied some things that only he can apply to, like the Tesla or SpaceX, I feel. And if the time is right for Neuralink, there's going to be things there that need to be applied that only he can apply.
Exactly,
it's like my pastor, I heard it once say, like, 1 step ahead's a leader, 2 steps ahead's a visionary, and 3 steps ahead is a martyr.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
like, there is such a thing about getting too far
100%,
ahead.
Yeah.
And
he said he wants to die on Mars, but just not on impact. Like, he's so about SpaceX's mission. He wants to be on not the first SpaceX mission to Mars, but maybe the second or third. And that is like being a martyr. It's like, he even said the first group of people, be okay with the fact that you might lose your life.
That's right.
And you're 100% right about that. But sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, no, you're good. Do you think you could work for him, though?
That if I could work for Elon, I've heard mixed reviews about him.
Okay.
I think I could, but the only thing is, I wonder what his leadership style is like to his like first level down. Does that make sense?
There's a particular leader out there that's very hard on the level down. The first level down, extremely hard. I think Trump probably is one of those, and there's some others I have in mind too. But I feel like I should have even mentioned Trump, because we don't want to bring him into this. But let's just take Elon, for example. That type of leader is so focused on the mission and the end user that they're willing to sort of sacrifice some level of workability on that top line. And I'm not sure how you get it any other way, to be honest with you.
But I think that he's looking for a type of leadership that realizes that he has to be hard on that first level.
Yep.
And I think that I remember telling the early people on my team, the early employees, I was like, man, if I could do this over, I'd probably be part of the first early hires at a startup as opposed to being the founder or on the founding team because of how freaking hard it is to start a company from the ground up. And that being said, I think because I understand the mentality of a founder, I think that I could probably appreciate the hard pressure that he puts on his first level leadership that most people don't appreciate. And so I think that although he'd probably be hard on me, I'd probably be okay with it, but it depends on my stage in life. Meaning, if he's like, hey, I need you to work 100-hour weeks, and then I have like 3 kids, I'm like, probably not.
Yep.
But it just sort of depends on kind of where I'm at in life.
Yes. Yeah. How many hours a week you working now?
Probably like 70, 75-ish. But then again, I am a little different in the fact that like 5 to 6 hours a night of sleep feels good to me. If I sleep like 7 or 8 hours, I feel kind of groggy. Kind of like how like my wife, if she doesn't have 9 to 10 hours, or sorry, if she hits like 10 to 11 hours, she feels groggy. But like 9-ish hours is perfect for her.
Yeah, that's
so
me.
It's just like exactly 5
hours is not enough, bro.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I think I get that from my mom. My mom as well. It might have been something that was trained into because I remember in high school I would sleep 12 hours and love it, but I was also kind of not very motivated. Like I was only motivated in Halo. Like I was ranked nationally when I was 12 years old in Halo.
No kidding.
We had sponsors come to my house, try to sell my parents on making me be homeschooled so they could fly me around. They're like, we'll pay you guys $250K. We'll just have your son with us, and you're welcome to join and fly around. And we'll just compete for Halo.
$250K a year, and they travel you around and put up like housing, whatever you
exactly.
need.
And my parents said no because they thought it was a scam. Because to be real, back then, this is when what was that? That was 2003.
Okay.
Like or 2004, and my parents were like, wait, what the crap? That was unprecedented at that time. This is when pro gaming just started becoming a thing, and so obviously I was all about it because I knew about MLG and all that type of stuff. And my parents were like, "No, my son's going to go be a doctor," which clearly didn't happen. So
there's some irony there. Yeah. It's Renji, right? Is that how you pronounce your first name? How do you pronounce your last name?
Bijoy. It's my dad's first name.
Renji Bijoy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is that how Indians do that?
No, it's my dad's name is Bijoy George, and so when he came through Ellis Island, they're like, "Wait, you mean it's George Bijoy, right?" Because George is his first name. So my dad's last name is a first name, so he has 2 first names. So they flipped it around on his identification. So when I was born, my dad never got around to changing his name back, and they're like, "All right, I guess Renji's last name is Bijoy," and so like, so it is what it is.
All right, so I want to hear a little bit about your story and how you got here, but let's hear a little bit about your work now. So first of all, 70 to 75 hours a week. When are you working those hours then? And then let's hear a little bit about Immersed, and then let's go back and hear your story.
Okay. Wait, so you wanted to hear about the hours?
Well, how do you put in 75 hours a week?
So it's interesting because so for me, like I think the people around me don't notice that I work that much.
Okay.
It's partly because like after my wife goes to bed, like I'm kind of just staring at the ceiling. So I'm like, I could be doing something. I could be getting something done.
What time is that she goes to bed?
Usually around like 10, 11-ish. And then she'll wake up around like 8. And so like that's a good like, what is that? It's a good like 10-ish hours.
Yep.
I usually go to bed maybe around midnight and usually get up around like 5:30, 5:45, and then work out in the morning alongside one of the guys on my team. He keeps me honest, man. He keeps me like motivated, which is good. And then we kind of get to work probably around like right after we work out, like shower, get to work. So we'll work maybe between like anywhere between 7 to 8 in the mornings when we start working after the workout is done, start working, and then we'll be done around maybe 7-ish p.m. So that's already 12 hours right there.
Yep.
And then spend time with my wife or our community at our church and stuff like that, our community group stuff, or hang out with friends, whatever it is. And then when everything's set down around 9 or 10 p.m., my wife's winding down, getting ready for bed, and by then I'm probably doing a couple more hours then. So that's maybe like that's probably like 12 to 14 hours a day right there.
Yeah, wow. And are you guys still going to the office together?
We do go to the, it's because we have only 5 people, and we are our friend group. And so like we're all we see. We play basketball together, work out together.
That's great.
It is awesome. And they're also guys who go to our church as well. So,
dude, that's real unique. That's real special.
It is very
So like the Immersed team is 5 people right now?
No, so we are 13 people.
Okay.
Everyone else who's remote, so we have 5 in person and then 8 remote right now.
I see.
We'll be hiring like 3 more. So we're 13 right now. We'll be at 16, and we're going to stop there before our next round of funding in the next couple of months. After that round of funding is done, then we'll hire. We're trying to keep it as small as possible, but we realize if we have about like 25 solid people, our team, we're all founder mentality people. So even with our small-ish team compared to our competitors, we're trucking, like we're about a third of the size or fourth of the size of some of our competitors, and we're crushing the competition at this point. And so part of it is, I mean, we're competing against like 9-to-5 employees at like Apple or Google or Facebook or whatever, but they're 9-to-5 versus founder mentality people, right? So it's very unique. Even the people on my team who go to our church, I kind of picked the founder mentality friends that like to be real, I say this all the time, but like the best man at my wedding, him and I are best friends, but we'd never work with each other. Right? So it's
there
not
is
just
such a thing as that.
Exactly. Yeah. And so like I don't just pick any of my friends. Like I pick the ones that I know are okay with, like kind of what I mentioned. Like if I worked for Elon Musk, I would have this understanding. I know why he has to be hard on me.
Yes.
These friends are the ones that realize why I have to be hard on them.
Okay.
But we're also friends. We're also brothers. And so they keep me accountable. They check my blind spots and make sure that we're doing this in a way that's healthy and makes sense long term. So like everyone we hire at the company are like I ask myself, I'm hiring you because I ask myself, like, could I see myself working for you someday? And if the answer is yes, then you're founder mentality person, and you're definitely welcome at this early stage. I think we want to keep that. It's crazy. I heard that Patrick and John Carlson from Stripe, they did that with the first 500 employees. And so I'm like, if you get 500 founder mentality people, I mean, it makes sense why they're crushing PayPal, right?
Yeah.
Even 4 years in is kind of where PayPal it's like, okay, maybe we should take this seriously. And then 2 years later, like Stripe is killing it in the space, and PayPal's like, all right, fine, maybe we should do this thing. But at that point, it's too late. They already have 500 founder mentality people at that point. Now they're like upwards of 3,000, 3,500 people, but they're killing it, dude.
Stripe's 3,500.
Stripe.com.
Well, also, if you're a PayPal at that point, you can't just swap out 1,000 people for 1,000 founder mentality people.
It's so hard.
It's going to be a process. It's not a one-time thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. So Immersed, what is that?
Yeah. So we're partnered with Facebook to build virtual reality offices, and so there are literally thousands of people every week who work in VR full time, 40 to 50 hours a week. And it's not 8 hours straight with a headset on. It's usually anywhere between 2 to 4 hours straight with a headset on. And, then they take a break, go get lunch, whatever, come back and whatever. Similar to like how much time you spend in front of your computer screens. In Immersed, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing, but the way it works is if you have like an Oculus Quest 2 headset, which by the way are super cheap now, like super high quality, super cheap.
Like how cheap?
$300. So
Okay.
that headset's probably worth about $800. But Facebook's selling it at a loss because they're trying to get into people's homes. Similar to like Amazon Echo Dot, probably cost maybe about $40 to make, but they sell it for like $15 to $25 just to get into people's homes, and they make revenue on the back end, right? Like you're buying Amazon shopping products through that, right? Same thing with Facebook's headset. While the hardware is cheaper and subsidized, it's actually subsidized by the apps and games that you purchase actually on the Oculus store. Does that make sense? And so even for us, for our product, we're an app on the Oculus store as of right now. And users pay $15 a month to use our product. And Facebook starting next year will be, or like mid next year, will be making a certain percentage of that as well. So the revenue that it was like they give us access to distribution, and we get we acquire these users, we convert them into paid users, and then Facebook takes a small cut of that.
I see.
And so anyways, the point of what I'm saying is like the way the product works is when you put the Oculus Quest 2 headset on, it wirelessly pairs to your Mac, PC, or Linux computer. It automatically spawns 5 virtual screens without any extra hardware. You don't have to plug anything in. It's just we trick your computer into thinking it has 5 screens. And so this is what has given us such a deep technological moat compared to our competitors. We're the only product that does that. We're the only product that's not only on PC but also Mac and Linux. Only product that spawns multiple screens. And then also on top of that, we as soon as you need to collaborate with your coworkers, they can also beam into your space and share all 5 screens. It's actually higher resolution than like sharing a screen on Zoom, and you share all your screens or as many as you want. And so for coders, this is a game changer. Like especially during COVID, coders are having to they're no longer in the office around all of their screens and whiteboards. They are now at home and they can only share one screen at a time. If they code on a vertical monitor, for example, and they screen share that on Zoom, it shows up as you have your horizontal MacBook Air or whatever, and then has like a thin strip. You can't read anything on that.
Right.
But in Immersed, you immediately beam into their space as if you're already around their screens, like in person, right? And then on top of that, if you need a whiteboard, we have a whiteboard in there. It quite literally feels like you're in person together. It's so crazy how with Zoom and you see someone's face on the screen, I mean, you don't feel like you're there with them.
Absolutely not.
But whenever you're in Immersed, it's crazy. Like if a person gets too close to you, you feel like, hey, you're too close.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty
You
mind-blowing.
feel like you're invading your space.
Yeah.
Just like if in real life.
Exactly. So we have to build like this personal bubble sort of feature where you can't actually go into someone's space. You kind of become invisible as you enter their space, sort of thing. And so that being said, this product has given teams tens of thousands of users every month that are working in VR using our product at this very moment. And so as we sort of rolled this out to different teams, it's been really cool to see how for them, they no longer feel this like Zoom fatigue sort of thing, but instead they actually feel like this is a much closer step to what they used to have pre-COVID.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. This is really cool, by the way. And
thanks, man.
I'm glad. Yeah, it's very cool. And I could see where it could work because Zoom is awful.
Yeah.
Zoom,
People get tired of it. Yeah.
People get so tired of it. And there's a science behind it because you can see yourself and you're not supposed to really see yourself when you talk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the human being is so attentive. Like I can see in your eyes and like if you just like a little bit, like if you squint your eyes, I can tell kind of how you're picking up on what I'm saying and how we read body language. The human interaction is like actually very like finesse and fine tuned.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
But Zoom, it's you're not supposed to see yourself when you're talking to other people, and you're somewhat distracted and
most of the time you're probably looking at yourself too because you're like, do I look weird? Like people are just our generation is kind of a little self conscious.
Yes. So there was an article somewhere, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal this summer, that was talking about like the science behind why a lot of people don't like Zoom. There's actually science there. So what you're saying though is I can see this working. It's so fascinating to me. And now at one point there was this thought that like, what's it called? Holograms would be a way that we would talk to each other more. But do you think that's just not actually going to be a thing and it's going to be more VR? Which I know hologram is VR, right?
It can be. Yeah. So I guess when people thought about, so I think the answer is yes, it's going to be holographic, but it won't be necessarily via VR. It's like the long-term goal of, or long-term meaning the next 10 years, or even honestly, even year after next, when Facebook glasses come out and Apple glasses come out, that's literally 2022. That's like 16 to 18 months away from now. When those glasses come out, people are going to look like holograms, but it's not this like external hardware where they pop in through a thing.
Okay.
It's going to be just through their glasses, right?
Okay.
And so the cool thing is the end form factor is going to be something where you have a pair of glasses, but you could also feel immersed into a virtual environment. Or you can have it be your current environment, and then it's kind of more augmented reality where you bring virtual objects into your current environment. So, for example, if you're at a coffee shop, you probably don't want to be immersed into a different environment, right? You don't want to be in another world because you're at a coffee shop. You're in public. Your stuff is out. Like you don't want someone to steal your stuff. And you'll probably be okay with bringing virtual objects into your physical world. But when you're at home, you're much more likely to kind of be bored at staring at your wall at your desk in your office at home, and instead, because I mean you've been there for the however many years sitting in front of your desk, and instead you'd probably want to be immersed into another virtual world, but you're in the safe confines of your home, right? So there are different use cases, but Facebook and Apple and Google and Microsoft, they all want to bring this in, and Samsung and Panasonic are also working on this. They want to make this one device that does both. And so
I'm sorry, what would be one device?
The one device would be a pair of glasses that are able to immerse you into a virtual world on demand, or let you be able to bring virtual objects into the real world too.
See.
So when you're wearing this pair of glasses, people say, "Oh, like why VR instead of AR? Because AR is more cool." We focus on VR right now because those devices are $300, and there's over 20 million users who have those devices right now. VR, yeah, the Oculus Quest through Facebook. Yeah, it's a $300 device. It does immerse you into a virtual world, and it looks like a block on your head, sort of thing. It's actually a very light block. It's like it's 1 pound. It's the same. It's just barely heavier than this. It's pretty mind blowing.
Wow.
They've made that thing so light, super high quality, super cheap. That's what I'm saying. If every single time I've given a demo of the Oculus Quest 2, it just blows people's minds. They're like, I thought this junk was like 5 years away from now, or at least 10 years. And I'm like, it's here today, which is why I think people they decrease the price so that people will be more willing to purchase it and be willing to realize like, hey, this is not VR like it was 3 or 4 years ago, where it would give you headaches and it was blurry and pixelated. This is you legit feel like you're in another world, which is pretty mind blowing. But that being said, people don't want to wear a block on their head. They want to wear a pair of glasses, and especially if it looks like cool glasses, it's kind of more stylish. So Facebook partnered with Ray-Bans, and so they're building a stylish sort of pair of glasses that will be coming out year after next. So that being said, like they're trying to give the immersion of what VR headsets give, while enabling it to have the sleek, cool style of Ray-Ban glasses.
You think it'll get there, like the same experience, maybe as not, immersed,
maybe
very
not
close?
I'm not 100% sure what that's going to look like, because part of it is when glasses are on your face, how do you sort of block external light from coming in?
Okay, yes.
And they'll have to figure that out.
Okay.
But then again, there are some like for example. Oakleys that kind of hug your face pretty nicely.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely possible. So we'll see what that looks like. But I guess the point of what I'm saying is whenever Apple and Facebook and all these companies figure out how to pull that off, people will be able to have the choice of, do they want to be immersed into a distraction-free private workspace like they do today on the super cheap headsets? Or do they want to be, if you're at a coffee shop, you probably just want to have your virtual screens, but you still want to also be able to see other people walking around and you might be around your friends or whatever. And the cool thing is that gets to the point where you kind of remove the need for a physical laptop, period.
God,
and
instead, so crazy.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing, yeah. And you instead bring a pair of glasses with you, and that is your computer, right? Especially with the hand tracking technology that we're working on, all of that enables you to not even need a physical keyboard anymore.
Well, explain that too, because I saw in your email to me, it said this email was written in VR.
Oh, yeah.
And then I saw demos, so I know what you're talking about, but explain that to the listeners.
Yeah. So our team, we work in VR. Like our team is like I would say a third in person and 2/3 remote, but we work together in VR. And so what that looks like is I'm around my screens in VR. I have a headset on. It spawns 5 screens. Because we have hand tracking in VR right now, there are cameras on the actual headset that track your hands in 3D space. And so you quite literally lift up your hands and you see your hands in VR. It's like an avatar hand. It's pretty mind-blowing.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And so we have a virtual keyboard that actually is overlaid onto your physical keyboard. So you have your MacBook right in front of you. And so the virtual keyboard is overlaid perfectly with the physical keyboard. So when you reach in VR to touch this virtual keyboard, you feel your physical keyboard too. And so you're able to touch each.
You do feel your physical keyboard.
For now.
But you don't have to.
You don't have to. So, but the longer term goal is for us to be able to essentially create a virtual keyboard that you can kind of move in 3D space and you essentially be dependent on light and sound in order to give you that haptic feedback, right? So the cool thing about the way humans work is, like, for example, when you smell something, you almost feel like you're tasting it, right? Likewise, when you hear and see something, and if it's pulled off right, it actually feels like you're touching something when you're not, right? So if you think about back in the day with BlackBerries, before the iPhone, it had buttons on them, right? And people are like, wait, the iPhone has no buttons?
Exactly.
How am I going to be able to click?
I remember that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everyone was so concerned. But then now you transition to a world where you kind of don't even need buttons. You click on the screen and it works. Likewise, in the future, people will say all the time, oh, but I need the tactile feedback of my keyboard. I'm like, you say that, you don't realize that you actually don't. There was actually a demo a few years ago of this company that worked on this hardware that tracks your hands. It was like an external piece of hardware. It was like $80. It definitely wasn't a good user experience. But the cool thing was the proof of concept of seeing your hands in VR. Again, this is like 5 years ago, so that was really mind-blowing technology. Since then, the company has sort of tanked. They got acquired for pennies on the dollar, sort of thing, because they just didn't figure out the business model. But the proof of concept was there, and they had this demo where you had a virtual keyboard, and as you're pressing each button, the keys would highlight, and you'd hear a sound. And actually, it felt like you were typing. It was really pretty mind-blowing. And so we're going to be bringing that into our product, hopefully in this next year, where you can move your virtual keyboard with your bare hands and kind of type in the air, and you don't even need to have your laptop around.
And in theory, you could move it a little higher and look a little higher, right? You could move
just
your
wherever
keyboard kind of wherever you'd want it to be.
You could even sit back in your chair.
Take it with you?
Exactly, yeah.
And you're saying, look, you're not disregarding the need for tactile feedback. You're just saying you can get that through sounds and light.
Yeah, because your brain fills in the gap. You've seen this in this use case in so many different things. Even right now, the hand tracking is, I would say, about 85% accurate, which is not very accurate. But the way the human brain works is, like if you kind of hold the headset up and then look at your hand, it's kind of off. It's not perfect. It's pretty good, but it's 85% of the way there. That 15%, it actually is a pretty huge difference. But when you put the headset on completely, it actually feels like your hand. Have you ever seen that hand experiment that went viral on YouTube? What they did was they put a synthetic rubber hand next to yours, that was same skin color, whatever, and they would put a cardboard block up. Or a cardboard or like a sheet right here. And so your hand would be here, that's hidden by the cardboard thing, and this synthetic or rubber hand that looks just like yours would be right next to it. And the person who's on this side of the table would take a feather and stroke your real hand along with the other thing, and then they would take their own finger and touch it, and then a second later, they pull out a hammer and they smash the rubber one.
Yes, I saw this.
And the person's like, ah! And they're like, oh, sorry, I don't know if I screamed in this thing, but they scream. And they're like, oh, I felt that. They pretend like they felt that when they really didn't. You didn't even touch their physical hand.
Yes.
Your brain fills in. It's pretty mind blowing. Your brain fills in that gap just the way the human brain works. And so the same thing in VR. Even though the accuracy is only about 85% accurate, you actually feel like these are your hands. And so likewise, when you move this virtual keyboard and you see the light and sound, it's going to feel like what it used to be on typing on a physical keyboard.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so if we're working together in Immersed VR, you're going to share your 5 screens with me,
or as maybe 3 screens, 3 of the 5, whatever I want.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So you could have one or 2 screens that's just for you, and you can share whatever amount you want with me.
Yep.
And let's say the whiteboard is shared. And it's shared in the sense that just like if we were sitting beside each other, I could write something on the whiteboard, then you could erase it, and vice versa.
Exactly.
Okay, so that makes sense. But the screen thing, though, if you share screens with me, can I edit those screens as well?
Not yet. That is a feature that we're releasing in the next couple of months.
Okay, so that's coming. But right now, I can't necessarily edit on that screen, but I can see what you're putting on that screen in a way that's just not available through Zoom or any other way right now.
Exactly. And then on top of that, what's so crazy is even 2 weeks ago when I was pair programming with one of the guys on my team, we're like, let's just try to compare this to Zoom. And we pulled up a Zoom screen share thing as well. And it was just way clearer in Immersed. I was like, because Zoom, I don't know why, but for whatever reason, it's like maybe 720p that's being shared. But in VR, it's probably like 1260 or 1640 or whatever.
Oh, wow.
And it's just way clearer in VR. And on top of that, you could bring the screen even closer and you just see higher resolution.
Oh,
text.
wow.
It's pretty mind-blowing, man.
But it is mind-blowing. But what's so cool about what I'm hearing, though, is like even if I didn't want to share my workspace or screens with you, in theory, I could spend $300 on Oculus headset, use your software, and then at the very least, I can now have 5 screens and a whiteboard for myself, right? Because I know a lot of people who like to have multiple computer monitors, but you got to go out and actually buy an actual computer monitor. Using what you do, it's
virtualize
like
it,
you just virtualize it. You're accomplishing the same thing, right? You're seeing different information on different screens. It's not all tied together. But now you don't have to go buy different monitors. Like at its most dumbed down level, there's some advantages there.
Exactly. And most of our users are solo mode users. They use Immerse for being in a solo private workspace just to be hyper focused, right? We get them into a mode of deep work more frequently and for longer periods of time.
If they use Immerse.
If they use Immerse, because the thing is they're like, for example, if you're at home, your kids are running around, or like even if you're in your own office, you can kind of hear them. You maybe feel the floor vibrating because kids are running around or whatever. But when you're in Immerse, like you're just so focused on your screens, because we also create environments that help you focus. So for example, one of my favorite environment is our starship scene, where you're sort of in a captain's chair and you're in low Earth orbit and you see the Earth slowly rotating and and you feel like you're in low Earth orbit. It's mind blowing.
You're working in as you orbit the Earth basically.
Basically. Yep. And you have your screens around you, and so it's kind of just this relaxing. Our users say all the time, sometimes they just move their screens to the side and stare just at the Earth.
Oh, wow.
It's mind-blowing, man. And so there's some companies that literally they just build the environments and they bring it to like nursing homes, because older people can't leave the nursing home, and so they help. They have beach environments and the Grand Canyon and things like that. So even just from an experiential standpoint, environments, it's mind-blowing. VR is a mind-blowing thing, right? And so we bring that along with your screen. So it's just like a chill environment to get your work done. You don't have to sit in your office at home and just stare at the wall, sort of thing. Some users, for example, who are in apartments in New York City where they have 500 square feet for their entire apartment. They're like, Immerse enables them to feel like they don't have to be stuck in their apartment, and they're more productive. We've had students who say, I really hated learning until I had Immersed. Like I used Immerse, and now this actually makes me want to use my screens, makes me want to get my homework done. We also have virtual co-working where, for example, freelancers all around the world, they're pretty isolated, especially because of COVID, because they're just kind of working by themselves. They used to go to co-working spaces, coffee shops, whatever. But now in Immerse, we have Immerse Virtual Cafe, where people all around the world, they're not collaborating. They're just sitting next to each other and doing their work. And they just feel the presence of someone else there also getting work done.
Whoa.
And it has a very, it rubs off on you. It makes you also want to be productive.
Yes,
you see other
it does.
People being productive, yeah.
And when you see the other people, are you actually seeing what they're currently doing?
Yeah. Well, you don't see their screens.
No,
you just
right.
You see them doing this.
But it's actually them doing that.
It's actually them doing it, yeah. And then also you can mute yourself or you can unmute yourself. So some people will meet each other in VR for the first time. It was funny. Me and Gavin, another person on our team, we were just working in VR and just doing our work in the Immerse Cafe. And these other people were just sort of talking. They're having conversation about, oh yeah, I'd love to talk with my team about actually purchasing this. And I was like, yo, Gavin, you know what to do. And so he moved over to that part of the cafe, say, hey, what's up, guys? Introduced himself, and he was able to virtually introduce himself and make the sale in a conversation. And so it was just not necessarily the sign the pay,
right.
The doc, but actually have the conversation and get each other's contact info, and now they're sort of part of our pipeline, right? And so it was just a cool way to meet new people like you do at a coffee shop. It's kind of like a networking event sort of thing if you feel like it. Otherwise, we're going to be releasing this thing where it's a very simple low lift feature where if you're on mute and you're just focused, we'll put virtual headphones on you so people know not to disturb you.
I was just going to say, it's kind of the equivalent of being in a co-working space, having headphones on. That means don't talk to me.
Exactly.
One headphone on means, I'm kind of available, kind of not. And then no headphones is yo, let's chat, bro.
It's really cool. It's really cool. Yeah.
Dang. What I love about this so much is I'm a huge environment guy. I want a space for a certain thing.
Yeah.
And then I would go somewhere else to write to do some writing or like the environment. I think matters so much with people's workspace, but even outside of work with just different things that you're focused on or whatever. Like I'm just huge in environment, and this gives you so many options.
I know, it's so cool.
So many options. What is it like for let's just say a nursing home person who can't travel and you give them Oculus and show them the Grand Canyon? Like how good is that? Is it?
It's very convincing. Like there's a demo where you're walking this plank over the Grand Canyon, and people are like they feel like they're there, and when they fall, like obviously someone has to be there to spot you. It's a multiplayer experience where you have to have people like make sure you're safe. But like one of my friends has this company that just brings experiences to nursing homes and other corporations for team building exercises and stuff. And walking the plank is one of them. And it's just like it scares people. You literally like I remember the first time I put the headset on my mom, she just like screaming. She's like, "Where's my legs?"
Oh yeah.
You know, she's like, I was like, "Mom, chill." And I took the headset off. She's like,
wow.
Like, it's crazy. Like because the screen quality has gotten so good, and the screen refresh rate as well. So when you actually like turn your head back in the 2014, it would lag and people would get headaches because their vestibular system is just not paired with what they're seeing, right? So balance wise, right? So. Now that the screen refresh rate, it's like 0.1 millisecond worth of refresh. Like it's just so fast, you just can't notice a difference with the naked eye. And maybe if you're a Jaguar and you could see life in like 4x speed that a normal human can, but if you're a human with the current and it has diminishing returns, making pixels smaller and smaller and smaller, get to a point where it's diminishing returns. Like Apple has no incentive for them to make these screens even higher and higher resolution because it's like. I mean, I'm a human being. Like, even when I do this, I can't see a pixel, right?
Yes.
So same thing with the Oculus headsets. They're now getting to a point where no matter how close you bring it, you just can't see a pixel. So you just feel like you're in another world. So your immersion or your experience is highly dependent upon the graphics quality of the actual objects. Does it look like PlayStation 1 graphics, or does it look like Xbox Series X or PlayStation 5 graphics, right? If it's with the new Unreal Engine 5 that works on PlayStation 5, I don't know if you ever saw that demo, but it just now it's human eye resolution. Like the games that are now playing at full frame rate, the compute has gotten to a point where it's the same as real life. Like you could legit recreate this entire room right here and it be all virtual and you would not be able to tell a difference. There's this headset called the Varjo. Weird name. They're working with the U.S. government. It's a $6,000 headset, but they use it for like fighter pilots and stuff. Where that headset is legit human eye resolution. The Oculus Quest 2 is $300. It's not human eye resolution, but it's close enough to the point where you can't really see a pixel at all. But the Varjo headset, now you're at human eye resolution on a headset, but it's $6,000. So the technology exists. Now it's Facebook and Apple and it's all their goal to commercialize that at a rate or at a price that people can actually afford.
I mean, the repercussions, the downstream effect of this type of technology is endless, right? I'm just picturing, I have a friend who's crushing it in real estate in Nashville. He could theoretically, presumably, he could use one day VR to show people houses, right?
That's what Insight VR does.
He doesn't have to get out.
Exactly.
And you mentioned fighter pilots. Like I know we have drones, but if this technology is good enough, couldn't you have a fighter pilot sitting in his living room flying an F-16?
Yeah.
I mean, in theory, right? If it's good enough,
So
you could.
The government already has that in place.
Like an F-16 or whatever. Like
exactly. Not an F-16, but like or an F-35 or none of those planes yet. Okay. But they have people who do that with drones right now with something called FPV goggles, which are first-person view goggles. I think what are they called? Wireshark or Games? I think it's Wireshark or whatever. I forgot the name of the company, but they make these first-person view goggles where you're actually flying these RC drones, going 100 miles per hour with this like crazy like souped up drone. Maybe this drone costs like $2,000, but like this thing flies at 100 miles per hour, and you're wearing FPV. There's this there are FPV drone racing competitions, and you're wearing goggles and you're just flying this drone. You're going through loops and like all this type of stuff. I don't know if you've ever seen that on YouTube. It's mind blowing. But if they have that. Oh, no for a fact that the government has that too. Yes. But even more expensive. Like some of the drones that they have, and the reason why I know this is because I used to work in government contracting stores. I did a lot of interviews with Lockheed Martin, Boeing. I did a lot of stuff with Georgia Tech Research Institute that works with the U.S. government. They have like drones that have petabytes per second worth of data on like super high resolution stuff. You've never seen 16K and 32K, but they're streaming that per second from drones that are like on the other side of the world live, because they have almost like an unlimited sort of level of resources.
Exactly. Well, I'm just thinking there's a level of feedback, instant feedback and awareness of your surroundings that you need to land, call it an F-16 on an aircraft carrier. Like the fact that humans can do that blows my mind. I mean, that's so impressive.
Yeah.
But the reason you're doing that in person is because you need that instant feedback and awareness of your surroundings. But if VR theoretically could get to that point one day where you could land an F-16 on an aircraft carrier, not be in the plane.
Exactly. That's what Varjo and the U.S. military are working on right now. They're already doing that. They're also working with NASCAR and different like Audi and all of them as far as car simulations. So you can feel like you're driving the car, but you're not actually in the car. It's pretty crazy. Yeah.
Do you see any downside to this door opening up?
I mean, it's dangerous for sure in the wrong hands. You start getting into like robot warfare sort of stuff. There's this really creepy video on the internet. I forgot what it was called. They showed these robots that were being deployed to like third world countries and just taking over. And these robots were actually controlled by humans who were remote. And so these humans who were remote were like wearing these bodysuits, and they were the robots, but they don't actually get physically harmed. Right. The robots, maybe, if you dismember the robot, it's like, oh crap, I don't have an arm anymore. But you're going against humans that have less resources, less like weapons, whatever. This can definitely get very dangerous for sure. But this is why the U.S. government is trying to, we don't have to talk about this the entire episode, but like that's why they want to be ahead of the game. There's this, so the founder of Oculus, Palmer Luckey, when Facebook acquired them for $2 billion, him and some of his leadership, transitioned out, and now he's working on Anduril Technologies, which works with the U.S. government in order to make sure that we have the best technology in the world in regards to modern warfare for the sake of protection, making sure that if China or Russia or Germany or whoever have the best technology and we're sitting ducks compared to them, like, we're at real risk. I mean, we have a pretty nice piece of land here in the U.S. And I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen Man in the High Castle, where like alternate history where Germany.
Andrew just started watching it.
Oh, really? Yeah. And I mean, it's a very real world. I've been watching videos or a documentary on Netflix about World War II and a lot of behind the scenes footage that hasn't been shown before, and now it's restored in color. And like so many things happen. Like Germany ended up taking over France, even though France had a better army. Germany just like were strategic and using their technology, figured out ways to just crush France, and they took over France. And to be real, I think that we'd be dumb to think that we're the world's strongest force forever. We need to constantly, invent technology. Yeah.
What was your in here? How did you get connected with Facebook and Oculus with Immersed?
Yeah. So I've been banging down their door for a long time.
Oh, really?
For the past 3 or 4 years. Yeah. And then when COVID had hit is when they're like, oh, wow, we should actually be looking at work from home solutions in VR.
Now, what do you mean you've been banging down your door? You had Immersed technology?
Yeah. So we started building this 3.5 years ago, back in 2017. And we had our first users working full time in VR early 2018. It's been a while. And
what were they wearing? Was Oculus around?
The Oculus Go, which is it's not as good as the Oculus Quest 2. I'll say that much.
Okay.
That was actually a $200 headset. Resolution was a little bit, maybe about half what it is now. But it was 3 degrees of freedom. You could not walk around in VR. You had to sort of sit in place and look around. But working in VR is stationary. That was totally fine. People were able to use that. But you have an added level of immersion when your head tilts this way and stuff. Now in VR, I mean, it feels like real life because of the cameras that are tracking on the headset. Anyways, that being said, 2018, 2019, and really even early this year, I've been constantly trying to bang down their door saying like, hey, this is something you should be looking at. In March, Facebook had started actually looking like proactively on their end, enterprise VR applications. Immersed has something like 40 different competitors in their space, or at least back then it was, maybe now 60 because of COVID, competitors in the space. And they checked out all the different products out there, and they had said Immersed had the best UI UX, the easiest onboarding, and honestly, the biggest technological moat. Like no other product does what ours does. And so that's when they reached out and said, hey, would you be open to be working with our team, working on the new headset behind the scenes? And so like we got to like profile our app on the new headset way before it came out. We get to sort of be in conversations around, hey, what sort of features do you need us to open up on the new headset, the next headset, et cetera, as your users and as your application grows. And so that's been really helpful to have a seat at the table in regards to influencing the direction that they go. At the end of the day, they are a much larger organization. We are a startup, but they value the fact that like our app, out of any other VR app in existence, has the most usage for a user. Meaning, Beat Saber is this VR application. It's kind of like Guitar Hero, but in VR, you have these drumsticks and you're kind of doing whatever. And it's one of the most popular VR apps. But you're not playing that 40 hours a week. In Immersed, you are using that app 40 hours a week. I mean, or at least our power users are. And so because these users are setting, logging times like 40, 50 hours a week in this one app, Immersed, that obviously sets off flags at Facebook, like, yo, check out whatever the heck that is. And so because of that, I mean, that did put us on the map, and it's been cool to finally have an application that is starting to really, really grow, especially because of COVID.
Is Facebook going to want to start introducing some very subtle, not too obnoxious ads while people are in this virtual workspace?
They don't
love their ads.
So they don't control our application. So fortunately for us, we are our own company.
Okay.
And so it's more of like a partnership rather than.
You'd have to okay that.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I don't want ads in my app.
Okay.
Just being very straightforward. But I'm down for there to be ads in the Oculus store that target people towards our app.
Yes.
I don't care to make revenue from ads. I mainly want to make more revenue on the enterprise side because there's plenty of money to be made in B2B applications.
Yes.
And even looking at Slack getting acquired for $27 billion by Salesforce, they showed that you don't need to show apps in ads in an application in order to make money. They just had awesome revenue from enterprise partnerships. Same thing with Immersed. Like for us, we're on the consumer Oculus store, but we have a B to C to B model, meaning individual users will pay for Immersed, whether it be $15 a month or even the free version is valuable because you get an extra screen and you're 48% more productive when you have just one extra screen. And
that much?
Yeah, well, that's what the internet says.
Wow, that's so much.
Yeah, and so, sorry, it's 44, not 48. 48 is what someone else put on their website, and that was wrong. I remember checking, it's 44. Anyway, so just from one extra screen for free. And so as we continue to grow as a product and people start using this product, we have users who then go to their manager saying, yo, we should use this for our team. And they are essentially the evangelist for Immerse within their organization. I don't have to send a salesperson out there to try to get their foot in the door, try to have a meeting, try to get them to trust the person, that they're not biased towards their own app or product. Obviously they are. They're a salesperson trying to make a sale. And at the end of the day, like we have to spend time and effort to go out there, demo it to them. First off, sell them on VR, then sell them on our application of VR. This whole process. Instead, Slack and Dropbox actually had proven out this B to C to B model where you can have a free version of Dropbox or free version of Slack. And did I say Stripe? I meant Slack. And as soon as your team wants to actually use this for your team and your managers wants to administrate collaboration, then you have a clear upsell into the enterprise. And so same thing with us. We have users all around the world that are using Immersed, and they go tell their manager. And honestly, because of the way the pricing works, their manager could just swipe a credit card and now their team has Immersed. And so we never had to interact at all. We didn't have to facilitate any of that.
Wow, man, I love that business model.
Yeah.
How long can you run this hard?
What do you mean? Like
you're working 70, 75 hours a week. I can just tell by the way you talk, which I'm loving it so much. But like you have a lot of energy.
High energy.
Like,
right.
do you feel like? And I know that there's an end game with Immerse. It's probably an exit at some point, right?
Probably. Yeah.
And so, but like the money side, money aside, and like the business model aside, which would require an exit, and most commonly does anyway. But like, how long could you and your team run this hard?
So what's so crazy is, like, you probably heard that quote, if you love what you do for a living, you'll never work a day in your life. That's what our team feels like. Like
you just love what you do.
We love, because it's so cool. Our team, we use this thing called Discord. It's like, kind of like Slack, but it gives, so it's our support channel, really. And it's also combined with our team's internal channels. So we chat with our team on our internal channels. Then we have the public channels where our users talk, and we talk with our users every day. And so our developers, they get to see the live feedback from our users every day, like thousands of users every day, and we're just talking with them, supporting them. And like our team, especially when you build a feature and users are like, wow, great job, and they go nuts. I mean, it gives you a certain level of energy, and you're like, it makes you feel really, really good, right? That the stuff you're building is not just thrown into the abyss of users and you have no interaction with them. Like, our team is live working with our users. And so because of that, we have a quick iteration cycle, we get awesome feedback, and we know how to build an awesome product. And because of that, that also synergistically affects the morale of the team. And it makes them really love Immersed even more. It'd be one thing if we had an app that like no one was using, we never talked to users, whatever. But it's different when you have everyone constantly patting you on the back, right? And it's just like coupled with the fact that these are already founder mentality people. Half the people on this team were either already working at their building their own startup. We ended up perfectly grabbing them right when they quit or ended things, or they're about to join another startup. A lot of these are people who, again, I'd probably be working for at their startup if I wasn't building Immersed. And so you get all these this group of people together. And I love, like one of the guys say this on our team. I remember he was telling me, he was like, dude, everyone, like when he first joined, he's like, yo, every single person on this team is built different, dude. And it's so cool to see, like, especially you just hear, like, obviously I'm biased towards them because I love them, they're my team, and we have such close relationships and they're really good at what they do. But it's really cool when we bring a new person in and then they also affirm it and identify it, and they're like, I've never been on a team like this before.
Oh wow.
It's I'm not the only person. And the thing is, when I say working 70 hours a week, 75, I mean probably like 15 of those hours are me just like responding to emails on my phone when I'm just like waiting in line something, or like, I don't know, in the bathroom or whatever it is, like just like, and so you call it work if you want.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, again, like if you're like for example, Kawhi Leonard, he loves the game of basketball. He doesn't feel like he's working. He's just having fun. But yes, he also gets paid tens of millions of dollars, right, to do that. And likewise with us, like you can call it work if you want. If you hate your job, you'd probably be like, oh, you have no work-life balance. But like for us, it's like we love our work-life harmony or work-life integration, because for us, not only does our team love what we do, it's so cool to see the spouses of the people on our team also like pitch their families and like yo, people love it, man. Because we are building even just thinking about how we restore the family structure as well, meaning before Immersed, like even just the advent of the internet and like advent of consulting. Think of a consultant at Deloitte. Mommy and daddy have to fly out Monday for work to go to the client, and then they work there. Then they come back Friday, and now they're at home to raise their kids for a couple hours on the weekend. With Immersed, at least year after next or whenever those glasses come out, mommy and daddy put on a pair of glasses. They go to work. They take it off. They're back home. It's enabling the family structure to be more cohesive and just more present than ever before. It removes the commute, and it's a better overall experience for the individual to have a more healthy lifestyle. So for us, that motivates us and drives us to want to build this thing.
I mean, I can see why. I mean, just talking about what you just did with that person who flies out. I mean, I have friends that do that. They fly out Monday and come home Friday. Yeah. Some of them Thursday night if they're lucky. And to think that you could change the way they do their work and their life that's mind-blowing, man. That's such a big deal. Like, I can see where you guys get a lot of energy, because in a lot of ways you're building this brave new world. That's literally what you guys are doing. So I can see you get a rush from that. But also, do you feel like you could run this hard forever?
Not forever. I mean, to be real, like if you're running this hard forever, I mean, you're probably not making progress as a company, meaning you grind this hard because you have to grind this hard. Meaning as the company grows and we have more and more people who we don't want to lose our scrappiness, we don't want to lose our hustle. We definitely want to stay ahead of the game. But at the end of the day, like if you say, for example, like here's an analogy a person on my team uses all the time. We look at this as a marathon, and there is a finish line at some point. But in the meantime, and there's certain parts where you walk, some parts where you jog, or probably not walk. Maybe I would walk in a marathon, but some parts where you're sprinting. And this is a sprint portion, especially in the early days. Especially just getting this thing off the ground. We don't have a bottomless, endless supply of money. And so there is money is oxygen. We have a certain number of dollars in our bank, and as soon as that runs out, we run out of money, and the company shuts down. So we do have to constantly get this thing off the ground. We do want to hit product market fit. We want to have our users love our product so much to the point where revenue is just pouring into the bank, to the point where we can't even support our users. That's how you know how you have something that's really, really working. Right now, we're still pushing this boulder up the hill, and as soon as we crest that boulder, we're gonna have to be chasing this thing down the hill. So and that's what we call product market fit, right? And so we're not there yet. We're still pushing this boulder up the hill. Maybe we're kind of close to the peak, but we still need to sprint and get to that peak before our competitors do. We won't die because of competition. I mean, Uber and Lyft, they both still exist. But that being said, we do want to continue growing this as quickly as possible, being mindful of the fact that, Facebook, Apple, Google, Microsoft, they're also working on their version of Immersed also, right? And so that being said, this is still a startup. Everyone on our team knows that, at least for now, we got to keep running and sprinting. Again, my wife and I want to have kids someday soon. And so because of that, I realize I'm not going to be working probably 70, 75 hours a week. It might go down to 60, but to be real, I'm used to if I'm, for me, 60 hours a week is probably what the average person feels like 40 hours a week is. Probably because, number one, I love what I do. It's fun. And my wife loves what I do, or loves what we do, sort of thing. And then number two, I probably have a little more endurance than the average person, partly because I've been sort of trained in that. I mean, the immigrant mentality is hey, you don't work, you don't eat. And that's the mentality. It's I feel like I'm in sin if I'm not, or I'm being super slothful. For me, taking Saturday and Sunday completely off, if I just sit in front of the TV, maybe go play some basketball, whatever, I'm just man, I feel so slothful. I feel like I'm not getting anything done, and it's different for each person, and that's totally fine, right? So, and I'm thankful that I'm wired to do things the way that I do. And like you said, you could tell is pretty high energy. I don't drink coffee. I'm not a caffeine person. I'm drinking,
really?
No, I don't.
You don't drink coffee?
I drink juice. That's about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I was just gonna say that a lot of people on our team are this high energy, but like those are the types of people we need in order to start this off.
100%.
And when we're 1,000, 10,000, Lord willing, that big, I doubt we'd be, we'd have 10,000 founder mentality people. That'd be cool. We'd set a precedence even further than Stripe, but I don't know that that'll last forever.
Sure.
And my role will also look different. Right now, I'm doing kind of a little bit of everything. I'm helping with content. I'm doing legal, finance, all that type of stuff. I'm coding. I'm our API guy. Like I'm the CEO of a 13-person Stripe, and I'm the only web developer on our team.
Really?
Yeah, because everyone does different parts. We have computer vision, we have Unity developers, we have operating system level developers. Different people do different things on the team, and so we're trying to hire for a front end and back end engineer because I just can't do this forever. Yeah. And to be real, I only get to code maybe 5 hours a week, sort of thing. But that's just not enough time because I'm having to do everything else too, right? We want someone who's doing that 40 to 60 hours a week.
How far down the road is an exit likely, do you think?
So we've already been given acquisition offers. We've turned them down because we know we can go bigger. And my team, with the mentality that we have on the team is we'd rather have 2 marshmallows later than 1 marshmallow now. So that being said, like we're not going to dismiss all acquisition offers we get, but we are going to like heavily consider each one because it is an opportunity cost thing, right? If someone comes to us and says, "Hey, we're going to buy for 200," we offer 200 million right now. It's probably wise to take that. If someone says 30 million now, I say no. Like it just sort of depends on the stage that we're at and can we go bigger. I mean, I don't know if you've heard stories of when, like, for example, Yahoo came to Mark Zuckerberg back before Facebook was massive, before their IPO, and Yahoo tried to acquire them for $1 billion. And Mark Zuckerberg was like, nah, like all the early hires, like, heck yeah, dude, that means, my equity be worth 1 million, whatever, blah, blah. Mark's like, no, we can go a lot bigger than 1 billion. Obviously, now in hindsight, everyone's like, oh, he was right. But in the moment, so many people quit Facebook. They're like, screw you, Mark, I'm done, I'm out. So many people were upset with him. And then now they're 300 times the size. They're worth $300 billion. So that being said, it'll take some wisdom and discernment in the moment when we're given acquisition offers. To be real, like if we grow to a 5,000, 10,000 person company and the board or whatever wants to IPO, I don't know that I'm a person that wants to do that. I don't know that I'm like a business CEO that wants to do so. I'm a coder at heart, which is partly why like Elon Musk is one of my favorite mentors, is because he's a technological person as well. More of a tech CEO. I am our CEO and CTO as of right now. And if we get to the point of wanting to IPO or whatever it is, like I might say yes, partly because like I don't know if I'll ever get a chance to lead a 10,000 person company ever again. I don't know if I'll ever have a chance to IPO ever again. So I don't know. It just sort of, we have to consider each opportunity as we go along.
Yeah, that makes total
sense. It's more of a democracy in our company. Meaning, if I truly have surrounded myself with some of the most brilliant people on the planet, I'd be a fool to not get their input as well.
100%.
And so every acquisition offer we get, I ask their team what are their thoughts. Maybe not when we're a 100-person company. I'm not asking 100 people their thoughts, but the leadership for sure I'd be asking. Yeah,
I love that. My dad asked me what I thought about a business decision when I was 9 years old, and I remember it to this day. Yeah. Like, what was he asking a 9-year-old for? Well, how much did he value my opinion? I don't know, but I gave it to him, and I remember that. Like, those around you can have a lot of input.
Yeah.
What is the tech scene in Austin doing for performance enhancing drugs or substances or whatever? Like,
I know there's a company called Alpha Brain. Have you heard of them?
I have.
Yeah. I think Joe Rogan talks about it a lot.
I use Alpha Brain.
Oh, you use it?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Cool. 2
pills a day, bro.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. For me, I've tried it. For me, I don't feel like it's helped necessarily my energy or my it doesn't increase my IQ, but it does help with clarity. Meaning, like for me, I'm pretty hyper observant. Like I know where all the exits are here right now. Right? I'm sort of that guy, even the one right behind me. Right.
Yeah.
So but like, and that's why I can't really work in actual coffee shops, because people walk in, I'm like, I make sure that everything is safe, right? So, but with Alpha Brain, it does help me focus. It gives me clarity. When our team had like a week long, honestly, it was just a week long like fire hose of like, what are we doing for the next year of the company? I popped 2 pills of capsules of Alpha Brain before each session, or once a day, and it did help. The downside was I had a massive headache when I was done because I felt like I was using my brain more than I usually do, and I feel like I use my brain a lot. But Alpha Brain just gave me this next level of like focus and clarity. I think the best word I could use for me, at least the way it affects me, is it just makes me clear. It's a weird word, but it just makes me not focus on anything else and just like clear. And I could see that direction way more clearly. The downside is, again, like I feel like it makes me use my brain a lot. So at the end of the day, I'm just like, I'm drained.
Okay. Yep. I know at some point, maybe this is more in out west, but microdosing on mushrooms is very common in the tech community. Is that accurate?
I'm
Even
not.
LSD maybe a little bit.
I'm not
so familiar.
Yeah, well, I mean, apparently World War II, like the Germans used. I've learned this all from this Netflix documentary. The Germans used not Percocet. What was it? They used crystal meth. They didn't realize it was a bad, harmful drug, but that's how they went 3 days straight trucking through France. Was they just did crystal meth.
Wow.
And it was a company that had been paid by the government in Germany to develop all this crystal meth for their troops. And so, like, what was it? Like, I think in The Office, Michael Scott talked about how in the 70s they used cocaine. Just, and they didn't realize it was bad.
Yep.
So I'm sure there's different versions of that. Yep. So I'm not super deep into that world. For me, it's kind of like part of me is also afraid that if I get too used to using any particular supplement, that I'm going to become dependent on it.
Right.
It's just like I don't know if that's actual. Like if that's actual. Yep. It's just like for me, I'm not the natural person who immediately like grabs a Tylenol as soon as I have a small headache.
Me neither.
Yeah,
I hate that. Well, people can do whatever they want, but I like to stay, as like dependent free as possible.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go back, and I'd like to hear about how you got here. Your story.
How I got to Austin. How you like just in life.
I guess how you got here to this table.
Yeah.
I mean,
for
your
sure.
parents were immigrants. I'd like to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah.
And then how you got into tech to begin with, and how you got into Immersed.
Yeah, I talked a little bit about this when I fortunately, I have the honor and privilege to say that like this week or last week was added to the Forbes 30 under 30 list, and so that was awesome.
Congratulations!
Yeah,
I was going to make sure we touched on that.
Yeah. And so when I
it's a big deal, man. How does that feel?
I don't feel very different.
Okay.
I guess what I'm saying is my team and multiple people are like, yo, Renji, just take a moment to celebrate.
Yeah.
Stop using this as an opportunity to go leverage the next thing, right? And I'm like, usually for me, I'm like, oh, cool, Forbes. Okay, cool. Now let's go use this to this and this.
Yeah.
And like, I think people are right. Like I think I need to celebrate a little bit more. I don't feel very different.
How close to 30 are you?
I'm 29.
Okay.
So this was the last year I would have qualified.
Sure.
I found out afterward that a couple of different my friends had nominated me, and so like
cool.
It was cool to hear about the fact that like as they were asked, like so Forbes reached out saying, hey, you were nominated, and I was like, oh cool, and they're like, hey, like we want more information. Then that was exciting, and then they're like, oh hey, now you're a finalist, and so I was like, oh wow, this is actually potentially going to happen. It was funny. The more so in my head I was like, I had kind of low expectations. I was like, okay, maybe I have like a 60% chance because it was specifically in the consumer tech category, and consumer tech is pretty open to anyone on earth, meaning. Like if you're in the music category, you're probably a professional musician. If you're in the sports category, you're probably a professional athlete or something. But if you're in the consumer tech category, you're competing against all the consumer tech apps in the world. And so for me, I'm like, all right, like they said I was a finalist, maybe I have like a 60% chance of getting it. So I had kind of low expectation. I'm like, there's still 40% chance. Yep. So the morning, like I had subscribed to all the Forbes 30 under 30 like social media channels or whatever, and I set up my alert. So I'm like, as soon as they post something, I'm going to see it.
Yeah. And
that morning, I woke up at like 5:30 or whatever as usual. I got my alert at 6 a.m. I was like, oh crap, here it is. And so I opened it and went to their website. And I swiped through all the consumer tech people, and I didn't see my name, and my heart dropped. So my heart dropped. I was like, man, screw this. I'm going back to bed, man. Yeah. I was like, I guess the 40%, I didn't get it.
Yeah.
And then 5 minutes later, someone texted me saying, congrats, dude. And I was like, no, you didn't see I didn't get it. And he was like, no, what are you talking about? He sent me a link to my profile page and it said I was Forbes 30 under 30. I was like, wait, what happened? I could have sworn I swiped through the thing. And turns out they had issues that morning pushing everyone's profiles up. And so mine was one of the ones that it didn't go through. Okay. And so like 10 minutes or 5 minutes later is when Forbes actually like was able to update, like fix all the bugs or whatever and get my name up there. And like even half the people's pictures and descriptions weren't even up there. And so I'm sure other people were flipping out too. But so I will say, man, it was a roller coaster. I was feeling super low and then super happy. But so anyways, in the different posts that we had pushed, sort of talked about how like I don't really have a crazy fairy tale story. Like I didn't have like an awesome upbringing. Like I definitely had my parents are imperfect. I'm imperfect in the way that I behaved throughout my life. I only became a Christian when I was 19, and so my parents, they moved from India about 40 years ago to New York. That's where my sisters and I were born. But my parents, their degrees were not valid in the U.S. And so my mom couldn't be a nurse. Like my dad, he had like an economics degree, but no company respected it. It's kind of a long Indian university name. So like, I don't know what this is. For all they knew, it was like fake or whatever. And so my parents, like they had to figure out ways, work odd jobs, odd hours in order to be able to keep food on the table. And so and this is New York City, so it's pretty expensive relatively to the rest of the U.S. And so they, pretty much the only neighborhoods we could afford. It was pretty dangerous. My mom was like mugged at knife point back when she was pregnant with me. And a guy was shot to death in my front yard. It was a pretty. I remember the moment when that happened. I was in kindergarten, and I didn't see it, but I heard it because I was sitting there watching TV. It was pretty late at night. Maybe like my parents, they worked so many hours that we didn't really have a bedtime. We just kind of
wow.
Yeah. Like my oldest sister had to raise me in a sense. Like my mom would tell my oldest sister, she's 7 years older than me, so she was holding a brand new baby when she was 7 years old. She was taking care of me, so she had to be my mom while my mom went to go work in order to keep food on the table, sort of thing. And my mom was getting her U.S. degree simultaneously while raising 3 kids, while putting food on the table, sort of, cooking, cleaning, all that type of stuff. My mom was a crazy, super mom, man. Anyways, I remember the moment when I heard gunshots, I was scared. It was a super loud bang, and I just went to the back room, and I cried myself to sleep. I was just scared. I didn't know what it was.
Did you see the dead person?
No, I saw the blood stained all over the sidewalk, though.
Oh, wow.
The body wasn't there when I woke up in the morning. The cops came. They banged on my parents on our door. My dad was home at the time. He was getting ready for work, and they were questioning my dad, like, "Hey, do you know what happened here?" My dad had no idea. He wasn't at home when it happened. And so we saw. I mean, there was tape and stuff. By the time I got out there, I just saw blood all over the sidewalk, and that was it. Anyways. It got to a point where I think the trigger for my parents when they realized, hey, we got to leave, was when our principal at the school would send us home with slips that would say, hey, don't wear red or blue tomorrow because we've been given an anonymous tip that there's going to be a shootout between Bloods and Crips. And so my parents were like, all right, we got to freaking get out of here. And so they heard about how the suburbs of Atlanta were a lot cheaper. You get a much bigger home for the same price. Like our house in New York was like a 2-bedroom home. It cost about $350K, and it was maybe maybe not even that, maybe like 700, 800 square feet. And for 3 kids, we had the kids' room where me and my sisters lived, and we had 1 bed in there, and so all 3 of us slept in that 1 bed, and then my parents had their room. And so going from that house to Atlanta, where the house would cost like $200K and be like a 5-bedroom home with like a massive basement, massive yard. It was night and day different, and it was almost half the price of what the home was in New York. And so for them, my parents, they figured out a way to be scrappy and keep food on the table. But when they came to Atlanta, things definitely changed. My mom finally finished her degree in New York. She got an awesome nursing job in Atlanta, and it was life was a little bit easier there for sure. So that being said, from 8 years, so moved there when I was 8, became this Halo nerd kid, and just sort of. But it was still the suburbs of Georgia, we were definitely some of the few minorities there, and it was very different for sure. In New York, it was actually very multi-ethnic.
Yes.
But coming to the suburbs of Georgia, I mean, I was usually all of my friends are white. Okay. Then I moved into the city for college, and all my friends were black. So it's funny. It's just it's such a crazy dynamic. Yep. But yeah, like I said, in high school, I had a 2.6 GPA. I cared about wrestling and Halo. That was it. And then I would I weightlifted a lot back then as well. Anyways, graduated, and there's something in Georgia called the Georgia Hope Scholarship. It's funded by the Georgia Lottery. Essentially, if you get a 3.0 or higher, you get a full ride to any public college in Georgia, like UGA, Georgia State, Georgia Tech. You just get a full ride, tuition paid for. But for me, I had a 2.6, so I didn't qualify. Wow. So out of 700 people in my class, graduating class, about at least 500 of them got the Georgia Hope Scholarship. I was definitely closer to the 700 end of the ranking. And so when I was 17 years old and graduated high school, 17 years old, $7,000 in debt because I only got into Georgia State, and to be real, you kind of only need a pulse to get in. It's actually pretty easy to get in, but I didn't have tuition paid for, so $7,000 in debt. I'd never even seen $7,000 in my life. So I was like, how am I starting at negative $7,000 in life? And so that hit me. That was a pretty huge smack in the face. And it helped me pull my act together. I ended up really trying hard in my classes. I ended up they had A+ at Georgia State. So I had a 4.3 GPA, and then transferred to Emory, and then had a scholarship to go there. And so that's where I went to Emory for undergrad I was actually pre-med because of my parents, and then math and computer science for me. And I took my MCATs after I graduated from Emory, interviewed at med schools, and as I was waiting to hear back from med schools, it was like a 9-month process. I started working as a software engineer, and I loved my job. And I was just because you're creating applications. I was working on the Chipotle app for NCR.
Oh, okay.
And so it was really fun. It was really, really cool. I loved coding and seeing the thousands of people using this thing, or hundreds of thousands of people using it. And I went to my parents and was like, yeah, I'm not going to med school. And they were upset, bro. I threw all my med school letters in the trash when I got answers back. I threw it all in the trash, right? And you could tell which ones are the acceptance because they're thicker. But I was like, all right, I know which ones I got into. I didn't open them because I knew I'd be tempted to go instead of being what I think was my calling in life. And now I know was my calling in life. But anyways, so threw my med school letters in the trash. Parents super upset with me. But because I think from their perspective, a lot of Indian people are in tech. But in most Indian culture, when people say tech or they say IT, it means tech support.
Right.
And so my parents are thinking, oh, you're going to IT, you're going to be tech support. Like everyone does that. And I'm like, no, I'm creating the stuff that they're supporting. I'm not. Right. And so for them, they didn't really have any sort of understanding around what it meant to be a software engineer. So, anyways, I did it anyway. And in hindsight, now they're happy. And that happened multiple ways, multiple things in life. Anyway, so my first job, I remember. After 2 or 3 months, I felt like I got a really good grip on what I was doing, and things started feeling repetitive. So I started asking my manager, like, "Hey, can I do more work?" I wasn't asking for more money. I was just like, "Hey, can I do other things?" And he was like, "Nah, we hired you for this position, and we have yearly reviews, so let's reconsider in a year." I'm like, in a year, I might be dead. I don't know if I'm alive. Like I want to keep moving. And he was just like, nah, sorry, man. This is what we do. Just yearly reviews. And I was like, okay, that sucks. But back then, there was no filter, or there was no filter on LinkedIn recruiters, like just trying to like target you. Now there's the product called LinkedIn Recruiter, but back then, it was just like, it was a free for all. Like people just spam you like crazy. And so many LinkedIn recruiters are pitching me on, hey, I can get you a mid-level position here and here and here. And so I was like, okay, yeah, why not? This manager's not listening to me, so might as well see. And so I did that multiple times, but at every company I went to, the manager would compartmentalize me. And so I'm like, and I would go into the interview saying, hey, my last manager compartmentalized me. Are you going to do the same? They're like, oh, no. If you want more work, we'll give you more work. But when it comes to, rubber meets the road, and I actually feel like I got the job done and like I understand it really well, they just wouldn't. They'd be like, hey, like, again, we do yearly reviews. That was seven jobs in 2 years. I went to 7 different companies, man. It doesn't sound good for your resume at all, but each job was a vertical move up, and not in the same company. I guess horizontal move or diagonal move up, the technological ladder, not the, I guess, corporate ladder, whatever. And by the age of, I think, 22 or 23, I graduated 21. About 2 years later, 23, I was a lead architect at GreatBigStory.com for CNN. It was kind of like their time waster app. Like CNN, most people who consume CNN are like maybe on average like 45 and up, but they want to hit the millennials or whatever. So they wanted us to create GreatBigStory.com, and we growth hacked it to 3 million followers within 2 months. And so we did a great job there. But again, I got to a point where I was like, dang, I'm like, this is awesome. It was fun, great experience. I actually loved that. But I felt like I hit a ceiling in my career because after lead architect, I mean, you're just going to be a lead architect the rest of your life. So it's like, all right, I'm 23, lead architect. I'm paying like $100 a rent with this house of 10 dudes, and like it's like, so I'm able to save a lot of money at that point. I was like, man, what do I do with my life? And so that's why I then started focusing on getting my PhD at Georgia Tech in computer vision, machine learning, working on autonomous vehicles, which is why I love Tesla so much, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And so, but again, the Georgia Tech PhD is like, 6 to 8 year process. And I was like, I only got 6 to 8 years. And so I quit that and settled for the master's sort of thing. And I don't know, like I wanted to build something where I wouldn't be, like my ceiling could be myself, not my manager. So I was like, let me just go build my own product. But before that, I also wanted to learn more about startups. So I started working at a couple of different startups, a half-time CTO at each one. And ultimately, I just, one of the teams, I loved the team, hated the product. The other one, I loved the product, hated the team. It just didn't work out. And then that's when I started building my own company. And so went through this program called Techstars.
How old are you at this point?
24. Yeah, I went through Techstars at 24. Okay. I turned 25 in the program.
Okay.
So this is 2017. Is that right? Yeah, 2017. So sorry, it was 25, turning 26. I was born 91. And so they, in that program, I mean, honestly, it was such a humbling program because I was surrounded by brilliant people, man. Like with Techstars, it's one of the world's top accelerator programs. About 10,000 companies worldwide applied and 10 got in. So it's a 0.1% acceptance rate. But here's the thing. I was the only non-Ivy League person / non-second-time founder. Meaning, everyone at Harvard, MIT, Stanford, brilliant founders, or people who already sold their first company, they're already a millionaire and they're building their next one. And so I'm like, Georgia Tech kid, like non-Ivy League. But
were you intimidated?
100%. Yeah, definitely intimidated. But one thing that was cool was each founder brought something to the table. The thing that I felt like I brought to the table that the other people weren't as good at was relationship building. I think a lot of that is tied into my faith. Like the fact that I became a believer when I was 19, and I learned a world where you actually like, hey, you need to not be mean to people and actually like love people. And it was interesting during Techstars. I was the only one who was able to have friends who were helping me build this company. And not even just friends, like former coding bootcamp students. I was an engineering mentor at a couple of different coding bootcamps while I was doing the thing at Georgia Tech, just to help because the PhD don't pay really nothing at all. So I was like, let me just I know I'm a web developer also. Let me just mentor students through coding bootcamps. And it was a cool startup hack where coding bootcamp students wouldn't be able to get jobs because they didn't have CS degrees and corporate companies were behind the times. And I'm like, these coding bootcamp students have better skills than most of these CS students. I don't know why they're not getting hired, but they don't have experience. I'm like, all right, let me give them experience. I need free labor, so here's a free internship. So I had a bunch of different coding bootcamp students who were just working for my company for free. And so going through Techstars, because some of these the exited founders, they just had millions of dollars in the bank. They could just pay someone here's $150K salary, help me code this stuff. The other founders, they're just a group of MIT students who were just like coders, whatever. But for me, I didn't really have anything. I just had these coding bootcamp students who wanted to work at the company because they loved me as a mentor or whatever. And so coming to the Techstars program, for me, I'd have other founders come to me, and we had these CEO dinners every Wednesday night. And the other CEOs would kind of lean on each other, share about their struggles, all that type of stuff. And they would say, oh, hey, I'm paying this guy $150K a year, this employee, and he straight up clocking in 9 to 5, and he's just done. He's like, we need support in the evenings, all that type of stuff. Renji, how do you get your team to be so devoted? And I'm like, honestly, dude, I have a personal relationship with these people. It's not just this transactional 9 to 5 mentality. It's look, number one, we don't pay much at all, if anything. Yeah. They're here because they want to be here. They want to build this thing and they want to learn. And so and they're like, yeah, but how do you find people like that? I'm like, to be real, so for us as a company, just in general, especially at our early stage, we have a salary cap. And so meaning if the person's here for the money, they're going to leave to go somewhere else for the money too. And so we can't really depend on them. So we have a very intentional salary cap. Back then it was 45K salary cap.
Oh yeah.
And then we raised another round, it was 60K. And then we raised another round, it was 90K. Anyways, that being said,
still have a salary cap?
It's now at 90K.
Okay.
After this next round, we'll probably bump it to 120. But here's the thing: pretty much most of the engineers on our team, before they came to Immersed, they were getting paid 200 to 300K at the previous company.
Wow.
And then they come to Immersed for a 70 or 80% pay cut. And I was one of those people, right? I guess 23-year-old kid making multiple 6-figure salaries and again, I was paying nothing for rent. So I was able to save up a lot of money. The first 2 years of building this startup, I didn't have a paycheck, right? And so I was just living off of savings and Chicago wasn't cheap either. And then also me having the startup budget was my savings, right? So we didn't have funds. The funds was my bank. And so, but as we hired people with a salary cap, back then it was, I think just out of the program, I upped it from 45 to 60. Again, asking a 300K engineer to come to join us for 60K, that's not an easy sell.
Yeah.
But we do compensate via equity as well. Okay. And so for them, they have vested interest, literally.
Yes.
They have a founder mentality and they're like, look, I want this equity to be worth millions of dollars someday sort of thing. So for them, it's again, this whole 2 marshmallows later as opposed to 1 marshmallow now. And the cool thing is it self-selects out the sharkish people or the consumeristic people who are here for what they need. Immersed is a baby and we got to pour into this baby. And at some point, this baby can be self-functioning and actually be able to contribute back.
Yep.
It's not there yet. And so we intentionally put a salary cap. And so whenever, sometimes it's annoying whenever we try to recruit someone and they're like, it's 90K, I'm making this much here. And I'm like, cool story, bro. Stay there. Yes. Right? Because it's a very different mentality. It's if you must be at Immersed, then come join Immersed. If this is not your mission, it's so hard. We do have hard times. It's not all sunshines and rainbows. There are hard times at the startup. And if you don't love what you do here, if you don't love this baby, you're gonna want to run, and we just can't have people like that. We want to have extremely low employee turnover. We want people who want to be here. I remember in the early days at Techstars, we had one person who was actually the highest paid at the time, and this is when I was experimenting with the salary cap thing, and I was like, let me just not give a salary cap to one person. Let me just see what it looks like, and sure enough, 3 or 4 months later, they got a higher offer elsewhere, and then they left.
Wow,
they actually took PTO to go interview, and I found that, and so I was like, "That's jacked up."
Yeah, right? Yeah.
And so they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm going on vacation," and straight up lied to me, and so even at the company, we have a policy where, because we have a transparent culture, and we want everyone on the team to feel like we're actually a warm family as opposed to a cold office. We actually tell each other what we're doing when we're AFK or away from keyboard, whatever, PTO, whatever. We say, hey, our family's going doing this and we're doing this. Partly because it's not just me on the team who feels like I want to trust people. We want the team to trust each other. Right. We want them to feel oh, I'm actually part of your life. Right. And so as opposed to saying, oh, I'm going out with some friends to go do a thing. It's it sounds super weird and sketchy. It's if you have nothing to hide, then why are you hiding?
Right.
Right. And so that being said, I felt like that was the thing I was able to bring to the Techstars cohort, was how to build an awesome team culture that's very startup mentality, very startup focused, and multiple founders in that company, or in that cohort, ended up firing off people from their teams in order to hire more founder mentality people, because they realized, crap, I'm prematurely creating this into a large corporation, even though we're like 10 people.
Yeah.
And so, but night and day difference. Once they went from normal employees to founder mentality employees, your startup starts freaking like rocketing. And it makes sense why John and Patrick Collison from Stripe did things the way they did, because now you see how successful their company has been, and there's no other company like it.
Yeah, I love that. At what point did you meet Sarah, and how?
We met at our church in Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
So right after undergrad, she had moved from Florida. So she lived in Florida her entire life, went to college in Florida. She got a job with Ernst & Young as an auditor in Atlanta. And she felt like she didn't necessarily want to get married, and she was like, yeah, I'd be open to it, sort of thing. But if the right guy, like all the wrong guys are pursuing her, and she's just like, I'm not really trying to marry any of these dudes, so I'm just gonna stay. And she was on partner trajectory at Ernst & Young. It was something like, I remember one of my friends was telling me his manager is a partner, and he's just like, dude, the average person at Ernst & Young, partner at Ernst & Young, made $900K average, meaning half above, half below, right? Which is pretty crazy. And so like, Sarah, she's like, I mean, she didn't necessarily care for the money. She's just like, hey, I'll just do it because it's a thing to do, 90-hour work weeks, like whatever. And she was valedictorian of high school. She's like one of those types of people. She's a freaking beast. I'm like, yo, you as a stay-at-home mom, we're gonna have little Renji Musks running around. I'm like, yo, that's gonna be a sick stay-at-home mom.
Definitely are.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. But and she and here's the thing. So she went to our church. And for me, I'd actually gotten out of a destructive relationship. And like, I was just like, honestly, I got to a point where I was like, I think I'm just gonna stay single the rest of my life. Partly because the girls I had previously dated, and even like, to be real, like my sisters and my mom, they're all a certain type of way. I'm pretty emotional, like, things offend them pretty easily, and like I kind of don't really have the time for all that, because I'm staying focused on a mission that I'm on. Yeah. And for me, I was just like 1 Corinthians 7, when Paul says, I think it's better not to marry, that started clicking for me, because I'm like, man, like there were times where one of my friends in high school, he was feeling really low, like 2 a.m. in the morning, and I was like, yo, dude, let me come over, and like I could just like leave and just go to his house 2 a.m. in the morning. That night, dude, he gave his life to the Lord, and he flushed all his weed down the toilet, smashed all his bongs. He got baptized the next week. Stuff like that. Like when you're married, have kids, you don't get to do opportunities. You have other opportunities with other families and stuff. But that was really, really cool that I got to experience that. And so I knew, hey, if I get married, like my devotion is going to be divided. Like it's going to be to the Lord, and then also to my wife and my family. So I'm like, I saw the advantages of what it meant to actually be single. So I was like, look, if I ever get married, it's going to have to be someone who I feel like enhances the mission that God's calling me to, and needs to be okay with the fact that God has me on a very specific mission. Otherwise, like, you don't got to date me, go date someone else. Right? Go marry someone else. Like, let me live my life. Right? Sort of thing. And so what was funny was when I'd gotten out of that destructive previous relationship, I remember, man, like, a lot of girls were talking to the pastors like at the church and be like, yo, man, tell Renji to like, say what up to me or whatever. And these pastors would like meet with me and be like, yo, Renji, man, like, why are you trying to stay single? I'm just like, cause man, I'm on a mission, dude. Like, leave me alone. Right. And he's just like, nah, man, like, like this sister and this sister, blah, blah. And I was just like, dude, I need to stay focused, man. And the thing was, these different girls who were interested, they were just not, I didn't see them enhancing the mission. But then when I met Sarah, you could tell she was just built different, so different from any other. Like when you meet her, you can tell she's just a different person. For her, she's all about the mission. She's all about she like legit. We have an open door policy. Like we have friends come over, hang out all the time. Sarah, the thing that she loves the most is when we're pouring into the community. She just loves that. And so I was like, this is a person who's enhancing my life. And so when her and I, honestly, this sounds weird. We had committed to getting married before we even started dating. Sounds weird.
Oh, wow.
So this was a situation. So she was in our friend group for maybe like 2 months. And then after 2 months, she had decided that like Renji would be a husband that she would want to pursue her. And then she vocalized it. She was just like, it was funny. I remember saying something like, hey, it's great to have another solid sister in our group. And she was just like, really? Because I want to be a intentionally pursued solid sister. I was just like,
whoa, you're not dating her at all at this point?
No, we were just in our friend group, right? And so for me, I was just like, well, to be real, I was like, I just met you 2 months ago. I don't really know much about you. So I actually said no. At first. And so for her, she's like, all right, well, I guess not. And then she kind of went her way. But then over the next, like, I would say like week, I started like noticing things. I started thinking about like, I mean, would she be a person who would enhance the mission that I'm on? And as I assessed it, I was like, honestly, yeah, she is very different. And so we had qualifying conversations, just kind of see where we're at on different things in life. For example, I was convicted to not even kiss another girl until she was my wife. And Sarah already had that same conviction. Things like, I was like, I want my wife to be a stay-at-home mom because, to be real, like, I don't want both of us to be on, like, trying to climb this ladder. Right. And at that time, I wasn't a startup person. I was climbing my ladder. And I wanted someone who could really pour into our kids, especially when I'm not around. And she was like, cool, because my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and I love that model. I was like, perfect. Yeah, like, just things just lined up. And look, I couldn't have brought Sarah from Florida to Atlanta. It was very clear that that was God who was doing all of that. Okay. He got her the job opportunity to Atlanta. He brought her to our church. He brought her to our friend group. And that being said, for me, I didn't have to go and hunt necessarily, because for me, I got to a point where I knew, like, the people that I'm fishing for are other people to bring to the fate, sort of thing. With Sarah or with women, I was just like, that just wasn't my focus. And I'm not saying that guys shouldn't go get what they want or pursue the women that they want. What I am saying is, like, not everyone is called to that, and that's okay.
Yes.
For me, God had other plans, clearly, right? And so when Sarah and I had met, it was just such a perfect fit in regards to, like, what we wanted to do. And on top of that, I was also attracted to her too.
Yep.
And so I was like, well, cool, I'm trying to marry you. And so she was like, cool, me too. And so,
I love that objectivity.
Yeah. And so, like, and that's the thing. She's a very, like, logical thinker. She's not as emotionally driven. Like emotions are good for being able to tell, like, where you're at. It's not very good to tell you where to go. As far as just, like, if I'm angry, I shouldn't act on that emotion, just, like, start killing people, right? It was kind of extreme. But anyway, so it was funny when so Sarah, like, her family knew when Sarah was going to be dating someone, they knew, wow, this is serious, because Sarah, she didn't date random dudes. Like, she just mainly rejected guys and just wasn't about just wasting time. For her, she's like, why date someone if I'm not going to marry them, right? She's not trying to waste time. And so, like, for her, brought me home that Christmas. So this was, like, I would say, like, around November-ish time where we had these conversations, and December brought me home to meet her family. And so, like, met her parents, and her parents were like, oh, wow, this is kind of quick. Like, what's going on? And so her dad and I hit it off, and I'm a pretty open book. I was like, dude, ask me anything in life, bro. And he dug as much as he could. And I mean, they were about it too. It was funny. Like, he had this rule that we had to date at least a year, like all 4 seasons of the year. I don't know what seasonal depression or something. I don't know what he's looking for, but I was like, all right, I guess, whatever. And so I negotiated it down to 11 months. And so I was like, look, we started dating in December, like Christmas time. I need to propose like November, like Thanksgiving, because she's going to tell. If it's exactly 1 year, she knows I'm going to propose. I got to throw her off. And so I proposed to her on the basketball court, because it's a basketball family. I love basketball as well.
Oh, wow.
2 of her sisters played D1 basketball.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so, like, and her dad played college basketball as well. And so I proposed to her on the court, and, like, man, it was good, man. Like, her dad and I were boys, and, like, he did pass away a couple years ago. He had brain cancer. But ultimately, man, it was just a really cool testament to God's provision and, like, his mission, like the direction he wants to take things. Because even with Immersed, as much as I was banging down Facebook's door, I mean, they wouldn't open their door, and then COVID hit, and then now all of a sudden Immersed has a lot more of a purpose, right?
Yeah.
I had like 60 people, maybe 50 or 60 people text me saying, you Renji, like Immersed makes so much sense now. I was like, I've been saying this for the past like 4 years.
Right, yeah.
Mainly on like the small trickle of growth of remote work. But then when COVID hit, I mean, remote work like 20x'd.
Wow.
It was crazy. So that being said, like, God has made it very clear throughout my life that, like, at the end of the day, dude, like, wherever God has me, like, and this might sound too black and white, but honestly, this is kind of how my brain works. I know that God is infinitely wiser than me, and I know Romans 8:28. Like, I know that He's going to have my best interest in mind because He loves me, and that might mean Immersed failing, right? Because He sees something that I don't. If say, for example, Immersed does very, very well in some other parallel universe, whatever, or situation, and Renji becomes this arrogant jerk, whatever, God doesn't want me there, make Immersed fail, and I'm okay with that. Or He makes it successful and turns out that I am faithful, and like, I don't know, but God knows my heart better than I do, and so I just trust Him wherever He takes this thing.
Yes,
right?
I think that's such a wise, God-honoring way to view things. You know, we say praise God when good things happen, but the Bible says praise God when bad things happen too.
Yeah.
What do your parents think of you now?
They are happier with, I think, from a materialistic standpoint, a lot happier, but so my parents and I had a little bit of falling out when I became a believer. My mom was more okay with it. My dad thought I was an idiot. He's like, why do you follow the Bible so literally? I was like, because this is not fake. Like, this is like literally a historical book. Like,
are they religious also? And if so, what's their religion?
So my mom is a believer.
Okay.
My dad claims it.
I see. Okay.
But I mean, fruit is
But you're taking
too.
it too far, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so if like my dad, like, yeah, I mean, I don't know how public this is going to be, but like, he doesn't live life the way that I do. Not that it has to be my way, but I don't think that he's a follower of Christ. He doesn't do the things that are in the Bible. I
see. Sure.
So the fruit is different. Whereas my mom, she does have a very legit like relationship with God. There isn't as much like biblical basis on some of the stuff that she believes or operates in, but man, her heart is there for sure. And I think that's like me being able to observe that throughout my life. It's had effects on me as well. So when I was 19 years old and some random coworker came to me and was just like, yo, are you a Christian? And I said, I'm born a Christian. And then he was like, that's not a thing. and because I mean, for me, I thought it was a genetic thing, right?
Oh, okay.
But because I mean, when you're Muslim, you think you're Muslim. When you're Hindu, you think you're Hindu. You're Christian, you think you're Christian. Cultural Christianity in America, that's just how it is. And I thought I was born a Christian because my mom was a Christian. And so he was just like, okay, so how's your walk with God? Like, what do you pray? Like, what do you read in the scripture? How's your prayer life? And I was like, I ain't got time for that. Like, I'm working, I got school work, whatever. And he was like, that is not what a Christian is. Okay. Straight up first conversation. I was like, we just met, bro. Like, I was like, who are you? But I mean, he like lovingly pursued me. And he's like, dude, you call yourself a Christian. Why don't you just join whatever Bible says one time? And when I got to that Bible study, we were going through Hebrews, and immediately, it was the first time I read scripture, and it pierced my heart. And I was just in tears. And I was just like, these are the words of life, man. Nothing has spoken to me in life quite like this at all.
Wow. The power of Spirit speaking through scripture.
Exactly. And it immediately, like, I was immediately convicted of my hypocrisy. Like, I thought I was saved by my good works. I mean, this Hebrew is being written to the Jews, right? And like, they're the Pharisaical, hypocrisy that was kind of everywhere there. And so for me, I mean, that pierced my heart. And then from there, man, I started walking with God in a way that, like, it was interesting. I would help out at the church Sunday school thing that I grew up in, and so the church that I went to wasn't very solid. There was no scripture. That wasn't a thing. It was kind of like cultural Christianity sort of thing, more like Indian culture Christianity in like the one state in India that's Christian, and it was more Pentecostalish. And there's some validity in some of the stuff that they do, but it's not necessarily based on. They couldn't quote any scriptures. Not that you have to, but like scripture, the Bible is important for a reason. Anyways, I didn't want to just up and leave. Be like, I'll bump you guys. I found Jesus. You guys are whack. I wanted to help. And so I teach at the Sunday school thing with all the kids and stuff, K through 12, whatever. And kids were coming to the faith, and parents were upset at me because their kids were asking questions about Jesus outside of Sunday. And they were like, yo, what is Renji teaching these kids? Like, he needs to relax. He needs to chill out. I'm like, this is they're coming to the faith. This is awesome. Yep. There's a blessing. And for them, they're like, nah, dude, like you're causing too many issues. You need to get out of here, sort of thing. They talk to my parents and sit them down and be like, hey, whatever, you need to control your son, like whatever. And so eventually it was very clear, I just wasn't welcome.
I see.
Ended up moving to another church called Blueprint Church in Atlanta. Super solid guys. John Anuchekwa was one of the teaching pastors there. He's like boys with John Piper.
Oh, wow.
You know John O?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know him personally,
but
about him, you went to his church for a period?
Yeah, so I joined them about a year after they planted.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
Yeah, and dude, like, that community was amazing. Like, I learned this, even just the way that John O plays basketball. Like, he's this, 6'4", 230-pound solid muscle guy, and he's like dunking on you, and you get like, but the way he plays, he grabs you and makes sure he lands you, places you nicely on the court.
Okay.
And that's how you know that's a Christ-like character, bro.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, man, I learned about like you can be a beast, but not have to be a jerk about it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Be a beast in a Christ-like way, right?
Yeah,
and a
I
humble
love
beast,
that.
yeah. And so, man, going to that church was a huge blessing. That's where I met my wife 4 years after I was going to that church.
I see.
And my wife, she's Caucasian. My parents, that was another thing my parents were not happy about. Like, they're like, for them it was funny. Like, for them, their perspective on white people was they only met like two kinds. Like, they're like, wait, either she's proper British because India, or she's like a redneck. and they're like, wait, we don't want you to marry either one of those. And so like, I was like, why is that your stereotype? Part of it is like, it's just the way human brains work. Like, they make heuristics based on their own prior experiences. Yep. And so for them, like, their mentality would, and every culture has, or every ethnicity has this kind of internally before you kind of grow up and have a broader perspective on life, you kind of think that your type is the best type. Right. And so that's just in every culture. When you're Indian, you think Indian is the best. When you're Nigerian, you think Nigerian. When you're British, when you're white, when you're black, whatever, like, you think yours is the best. Because you're biased, obviously, clearly, right? And so for me, like, when I told them that I was, that she was white, they're like, yeah, no. And I was just like, I'm gonna do it. You already know how I operate. I'm gonna do what I want to do. and like, but when they met her in person, man, my parents' hearts melted. Yeah. And they love her, bro. She is like another biological child of theirs.
That's so great. I'm happy to hear that.
I love to see, like, man, I just love seeing my mom and Sarah just like get so close.
Oh yeah,
I love that so much.
That's so great. My wife is like probably closer to my mom than I am.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like that's just such a blessing when that happens, and it doesn't always happen.
I know, and I love that. I love whenever my mom calls Sarah instead of me. I'm like, that's legit.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm curious. Yeah. What do you believe to be true to run this hard? Like to apply so much time and energy and money to life, really? That's what you're doing. Like, what do you even believe to be true to like be so clear on your mission? Is it that you want to, you know, kind of give your kids a better kind of start to life than you had? Is it that if there's opportunity, you feel obligated to chase that opportunity? Is it that you have, you know, 24 hours in a day and 7 days in a week, so what else are you going to do with your time? You may as well run hard after something. Like what? There's this underlying belief that you must have on something or some things like that cause you to like run so hard after this.
So I think my personal conviction is not. So I've met other Christian founders who would say, I want to build multi-generational wealth. To be real, like my kids can go build their own thing. I'm just being meaning I see the blessings in the humble beginnings that I had. Meaning, if Immersed exits, like Lord willing, and like if we become multi-millionaires, whatever, like I don't want my kids to be spoiled. Number one, for like I remember reading in Ecclesiastes, he talks about how like why build my kingdom here on earth if my kid just inherits it, sort of thing, right? Like I can't take it with me to heaven. Number one, and number two, they could also build their own thing. But also like for me, like I've realized that the mission that I'm on is not prescriptive for other people to do the same thing. I think that God has given me a unique calling. I didn't sign up for this necessarily, but like this is the path that He took me down. And so I remember like I was talking with the church plant resident of the church that I go to now. He's like on staff. He's gonna plant his church in January 2022. And him and I, like we see eye to eye, or we feel like we both have this very unique calling in the mission that God has us on. Meaning, you know, I talk to a lot of believers who say, hey man, like I think that you need to have more rest, man. Like I think that you need to like take the whole weekend off, sort of thing. And like I'm like, there were and at times where I tried it and I legit felt like I was in sin by taking just the whole Saturday and Sunday off, and feel like I was squandering our investors' time and money, all that type of stuff. Like they had trusted me with millions of dollars. I needed to be, but not just that, like God has wired me to be different. He does have a unique calling, what He calls me to do. And to be real, my personal conviction is like by the time I die, I want to look back on my life and feel like used up as opposed to rested up. Does it make sense? And I feel that's unique. I don't think all believers need to do that. Some believers are called to rest a lot more. For at least for right now, my personal conviction is like, hey, if I'm tired and my wife needs time, I can sleep later. And it's I need to serve. And the conviction that God's given me specifically is die, serve. And He's going to be giving me He's going to be supplying me with a supernatural provision of energy when needed. He like if there are nights I need to pull all-nighters, He will get or maybe 2 hours of sleep. He will give me supernatural sleep in order to get this thing done. And this might not be the rest of my life, but at least that's for now. So, and that being said, like it's been cool to see. Like I always thought that, or rather, like God's given me some sort of like inkling that using Immersed, He's going to be able to pour capital into the church and ministries and like and other startups and stuff. But what's been cooler is this past summer, it's been cool to see how God's done this in a cooler way than I thought He would. What I mean by that is we had a public crowdfunding campaign, partly because I had a realization before that I'm just making rich VCs even richer. And all the friends and family who had loved and supported us throughout the years, they're not going to be able to take part in any of the financial upside of our business. And so I was like, why don't I just open up a public crowdfunding campaign to get our friends and family in? Even though we've already raised VC, why not just, it's not illegal and we don't have a board in place yet. I'm going to do this. So I opened up this public crowdfunding campaign. I was like, maybe we'll raise like $300,000 to $500,000, just friends and family, whatever, just to add to the, 2 million at that point that we'd raised to date. And within 4 hours, it blew through $1 million. Then in the next 2 days, it blew through $2 million.
Holy cow.
And I was like, all right, this is too much, and we cut it off. Because I don't want to dilute the company that much. Right. And so, because it was like friends got in, friends of friends, like families of friends, friends of family. Like it just starts going viral throughout the U.S. sort of thing. And we had 1,500 people who invested on average like $1,500. And so that being said, like it was really cool to see how the vast majority of those people are believers. People at different churches we met as we moved around the U.S. And like even $800K came from our church here in Austin. We've only been going here for two years.
Wow.
And so like what God has shown me is He's going to pour capital into the church. It's not going to be just from Renji's pockets. It's going to be from the pockets of these hundreds of believers all around the US. And so, if Immersed exits and has, like we did that at like a $10 million valuation, I would love to exit for like, $2 billion plus whatever. Because to be real, if the definition going to work means this using Immersed, I mean, that's like an Uber-sized company. That's a $50 billion.
That's massive.
Yeah, it's huge, right? Like imagine people on the road, like not on the road because they're going to work, like groceries and airport. That's about it, right? Or hospital or something, right? Like the vast majority of people on the road is because they're going to the office, right? Imagine if that was no longer a thing. Like this is a $50-100 billion plus size idea, and I'm like, all right, we'll try to exit for $2 billion, which is like a 200x from the $10 million round that we did this past. So we've been given acquisition offers higher than that. But part of my mind was like, we're going to be taking friends and family's money. Worst case, if things don't work out, I could definitely sell this thing for $10 million and get their money back. So for me, definitely did. Like, I had so many people reach out and be like, hey, why aren't the terms like 15 to 20 million? What's the angle here? And I was just like, honestly, just because my mom's money is in this thing. I'm trying to keep it low, kind of conservative.
Yep.
And so we're going to be doing, and what I've noticed is all these people, like they have also been like valuable, smart investors by giving us connections at all these different companies. And just by virtue of having a sheer, like 1,500 people who are financially obligated to our success, it's been awesome to see how much they've been connecting us to all these different companies or opportunities, as opposed to just having one VC firm or two VC firms and them give us, maybe 5 connections. And on top of that, like the attitude was so different. A lot of VCs have, just to be real, so the VC that I love is Sovereign's Capital. It's a Christian VC firm. Man, Jake, he was an older brother to me in the faith 2 years before they ever invested. And man, I just love the way that he's went to battle for me so many times. Unfortunately, that's the only person I could say that has done that. Most other VCs that we've dealt with, total opposite. Very, very consumeristic, very domineering. I just don't want to work with those types of people because it's counterintuitive. It works against us. Whereas the people in our public crowdfunding campaign, the attitude was, dude, thank you so much for letting me be part of this.
Yes.
I'm like, yo, you put in 50K in this. Thank you for giving me 50K. and just the attitude was so different.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I remember one of the guys who cuts my hair. He goes to our church also, and he's just like, yo, dude, like. After the whole $2 million round closed, he was just like, yo, dude, like, how does it make you feel that you have like $2 million from people all around you? Is it kind of like nerve wracking? And I was just like, honestly, dude, it's so encouraging because to be real, I thought that people just thought that I was on this dumb like startup pursuit, like Renji's working on this weird thing, like because I was used to people not seeing what I see.
Yeah.
Even when I got into the Techstars program, the managing director told me specifically, he's like, dude, Renji, like I don't know what you see, like this Immersed thing makes no sense to me, but I think you see something that no one else sees. Just like how 20 years ago, SpaceX, Tesla, Elon Musk saw something that no one else saw. Like they understood what he was working on, but they're like, that's never going to work.
Yep.
He's like, no, I see a path forward. The same thing with Immersed, like. 3.5 years ago, everyone for the past 3.5 years, or I guess from January preceding March of this year, for the past 2.5 years before that, everyone's just like, dude, I don't know what you're working for, some weird crazy project. Who wants to work in VR?
Now they get it.
Yeah, exactly. And who wants to work with but after COVID, I was like, dude, that makes so much sense.
Yes.
And so now. All the people who are in that, like it makes sense to them, and like and I was telling the barber guy that it's encouraging because now I see that people don't just think I'm working on some weird random idea. They truly trust me, and because for all they know, the whole thing was a scam.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for the $2 million. I'm running to go to some island and live there, sort of thing. Obviously, I'm not doing that. Like, and what's so cool is when Immersed exits. This will be, hopefully a 200. If it's a $2 billion exit, if it's a $4 billion, whatever. Hopefully, like a 200x return on someone's like 10K, turn into $2 million, and now they have the funds to go do what they want to do, sort of thing.
So
right?
cool, man.
So God has shown me that this is way more than just Renji being able to pour capital into the church.
Yes,
it'll be the church being able to pour capital into the church.
Yeah, I love that so much. Well, man, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, man, this is fun.
Thoroughly enjoyed this. This is a privilege to meet you.
No, right.
Yeah, I love what you're doing, man. I mean, keep it up. You've got an energy and kind of a vision and a clarity of purpose and mission about you that is, I think it's unique.
Yeah.
And so don't lose that, and I think you're doing this for the right reasons. I think that there's a lot of people that would do this for the kids, setting up the kids really well, or for the money reasons. And I just feel like, man, there's a purity to it when you're doing it for the love of the work, and the benefits to others.
Yeah.
And then usually the money comes as well, So, man, I'm going to be following Immersed closely, bro. Closely, for sure. I love it so much. I mean, I see, shoot, $2 billion, I don't know. I mean, this could be a Slack, man.
Yeah. 100%.
I mean, I know you're you're aware of that upside as well, most certainly. But
I'm trying to keep it a little conservative,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Any final thoughts for the listeners before we wrap this up?
Yeah, let me think. Man, I think some of the most valuable things that I've learned over the years is, man, like I think it's like Michael Seibel, one of the founders of Twitch, talks about how a lot of people quit too quickly. I know it's important to fail fast, but that's once you have data that validates that this is not a good idea for me to work on. But oftentimes people quit on something that actually can be a good idea if you just keep grinding a little bit longer. And to be real, I mean, being candid, dude, like back in January, I was trying to figure out how to shut down Immersed because 2 months later is when COVID hit, and then like remote work starts skyrocketing. Then the Facebook partnership, then we raised $3 million this year. So it was the 2 and then a $1 million VC round right before that. And like, had I not pushed through just 2 more months, I mean, Immersed could be shut down right now at this point, right? And so like, it's been cool to see that. Or so Michael Seibel says, like, people, they quit too early, just grind it, give something 2 years. People are too quick to be like, 6 months, I'm tired of this, I'm not gonna. And like, a lot of this is a lot of grit, a lot of this is faithfulness and loyalty, and just learn, try to build it, sort of thing. And meanwhile, surround yourself with people who are encouraging, who could help you go the distance. Because to be real, like in my situation, if my wife was like, oh, there's a huge drain on our life, why are you doing all this, and she does that for 2 years straight or 6 months straight, I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna be done with it. I'm gonna be like, look, happy wife, happy life, happy lives. Right? You heard that a million times, right? But what's been cool is, like, man, if you have people who support you and encourage you, even almost to a fault, maybe you yourself could be the sober-minded person that says, okay, maybe it's been 2 years, maybe I should quit this thing. But at least the reason why your thing failed wouldn't be from a lack of effort. And so that being said, like, I think that's a huge learning. And then on top of that, surrounding myself with people who are encouraging, man, people who aren't here because of the success. The people who have been supporting me for the past 3.5 years and didn't just start supporting me because of COVID and because of the growth that we've gotten after that, right? And so, that being said, like, being content with the outcome and being content with the fact that you were faithful and you were doing what God called you to do, and be faithful, grind hard, and be okay with what the results are. Meaning, if God does ultimately, it's His will for things to shut down or be successful, know that He did it because He knew that was the best thing for you. Again, if Immersed were to fail, I need to be okay with the fact that Immersed failed and it was the best thing for me, because again, I can't take this into the next life. But if Immersed is successful, know that God did that for a reason and that He's calling me to do something with that. Because to whom much is given, much is required, right? And so, man, I think that through all of this, dude, like, I think it's easy for, like, maybe, like, I don't know, famous people and athletes to be like, yeah, God's number one, put God first. But for real though, like, is God the person that you're walking with? When people see you, do they see that you're walking with Jesus? And if not, if you're not a believer, live your life as you are. Obviously, my call to action is, like, come to the faith, because at the end of the day, like, what's the point of this life? But if you are a Christian and you're building a company, man, there's been so many advantages to being a believer in my space. Here's an example. So because of the way that God has transformed the way that I see life, when I meet a VC, or like, the VC could be a millionaire or a billionaire, I've seen founders who, like, shudder and, like, they're nervous, they're meeting this person and they're like, crap, this guy's a billionaire. Like, and, like, whatever the VC says, the founder will do. The founder has now become emotionally a slave to this VC. But for me, I'm like, yo, you're a human creating God's image, just like me. This is, like, we're on a level playing field.
The gospel is leveling playing field.
Exactly.
For sure,
And what I've realized is when they see that I'm just talking to them like they're a peer, for some reason they see that as, like, oh wow, this guy's really confident. Like, no, I think you're just used to people who just don't see you as they should be seeing you. And I think that me having a Christian lens is not something that it's gotten to a point where I don't have to, like, mentally think about those things. It's just how I operate, how I see. Like, I see you as a brother who's on the same level playing field as me, and so there was an advantage to that. Just like from racing VC, when it comes to, for example, my personal conviction, I just don't use profanity, and people notice it. Like, my team, other VCs, and they're like, "Are you a Christian? Like, why do you not curse?" And I'm just like, I don't see value to it. I don't feel like strong language has to be a crutch for making strong, valid points. And it's caused them to have a certain level of respect. Not that I demand respect, but at least they could take me seriously, right? Especially when I was in my younger 20s. And I started building this thing from the ground up, going through tech. Again, being a 25 to 26-year-old kid, going through Techstars, like, still a kid. I'm 29, like, kind of a kid, but, like, people, they just because I don't, by virtue of just not cursing, they automatically think I'm at least 35 or 40.
Sure.
And so like since I became a believer when I was 19, the oldest I've heard was like 42. I was like, all right, I don't know, 42. but what's interesting is they associate the age with a certain level of respect and authority, or rather, they take your words with more weight, right? And so because I speak a certain way, they take me more seriously. And so as a 25-year-old kid, I have VCs who are like, oh wow, this is like, I should take this kid seriously. And not that, again, not that I deserve anyone's respect or whatever it is. Like, I would hope that I have earned some of it. But that being said, like, being a believer and being open and honest about it, like, I think it's like one of the first lines of my LinkedIn profile. Like, I forget exactly what it says, but I'm very forward about my faith. What I've realized is being sort of this like quiet behind the scenes, like yes, I spend time with church people behind the scenes, but then when it comes to business, like, I just don't even talk about it. It has its disadvantages, meaning whenever people connect to you on like Facebook, Instagram, and they see all this church stuff, but then in person, like, wait, you never talk about this stuff. Like, unbelievers are not stupid. Like, non-Christians are not stupid. Like, they know that you're living a double life. And that's like, at the end of the day, it's like they want to be around authentic people. Even people who are anti-Christian, I have great relationships with because they know I'm being real with them. Right? They know that I'm not BSing them. Like, I'm not making stuff up. They know that they're getting the real me, and they know that I love them, and like I don't have any ill will towards them. They know that like they can trust me. They come to me whenever they need something, even though they just polar opposite end of the spectrum in regards to a worldview. So that being said, man, like, being a believer who's been straightforward about his faith, like, God has only shown me that, like, especially even on the Forbes posts, I was very direct about like my faith, especially at the end of that post. I talked about how, like, look, I know who I am. I don't deserve this. At the end of the day, dude, like, God is the one who opens. I can't claim credit for these things, which is why it's like, I'd literally be lying to myself if I were to think that I built this. Like, I can't even breathe without God. My heart is beating because God lets that happen. Who am I to say, oh, I built Immersed from the ground up? Like, I achieved Forbes. Like, I'm the stuff. You know what I mean? When I said it. That being said, man, like, people say like, dude, I appreciate the fact that you give glory to God. I'm like, the reason why I give glory to God is because I literally just cannot operate another way, because it's so clear, it's so true. Anyways, that's the end of it. But
love it.
I'm done preaching, bro.
No, that's great, man. I appreciate it so much. Renji Bijoy, everybody. Thank you so much for being on.
No, I'm glad to be here, man.
Yeah, it was a privilege.
Awesome.